upper.
Oh, yeah.
Was born ready.
For sure.
All right.
My throat.
3, 2.
We're going live.
Welcome, everybody, one and all, to another glorious and groundbreaking episode of the Mission Stories podcast, or as we like to call it here, just Mission Stories. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host. I'm Troy, by the way, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Lyndon, over there. How's it going, Lyndon?
Good. You got to let the people know because there's going to be a lot of first-time listeners.
Oh, hold on. Let me just go ahead and mute this real quick. Start again. Just kidding.
Why is there going to be a lot of first-time listeners?
Well, there might be
because it's
first-time
groundbreaking.
listeners. Yeah, plus it's groundbreaking. Plus, you know, Caleb's here. Hey, Caleb, welcome.
Thank you.
Caleb, you're a longtime listener, longtime friend of all of us here, and first time being on the podcast. So welcome to Caleb. Everyone give Caleb a round of applause.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
a first. This is a first. We've never done applause before, have we?
Oh.
And that's enough out of you.
Oh, I didn't think I wanted an applause,
Hush,
but all right.
Jeremy.
And Jeremy Olson is also here.
Came up from Lethbridge for this, boys.
Yeah.
And girls. And
Yes,
friends.
sir.
You might remember Jeremy for emailing us every week,
Yeah, incessantly.
Do you
might
email
say.
every single week, Jeremy?
Yes.
demanding that he
But it's
be
never
on
been
the
read
podcast.
every week.
Oh, you
Well-
guys are slacking.
No, that's not true. People always say this like you guys aren't reading it. Hey, listen to every single episode and maybe you'll... It's like we're not going to let you know when we're reading and when in the episode we're going to read.
So you gotta listen to everything.
You gotta be
listen to
diligent.
everything. Or you just write a long email like I did and you take up the whole episode.
Yeah, well, it was so groundbreaking too because I think it was the first email you had written, Caleb, and we value your opinion so highly we had to like... It's like Caleb has spoken. We have to, you know.
Yeah, Caleb wrote a short essay. There's going to be a whole episode dedicated to it.
Perfect.
Well, it's already done for those who maybe don't realize. This was back in 2020. It was all about like the Jordan documentary. We had talked about it, and then Caleb sort of put his 2 cents in, and he what was the joke? You're like, I feel like Troy only knows basketball from Space Jam.
Wait
Well,
till
no, I
Space Jam 2
I
comes
just
out.
didn't know how much. I didn't know how
It's
much you
it's
knew
accurate,
about
though.
basketball.
No, it's true.
I mean,
though.
I know that Lyndon is a big basketball fan. I used to live with him. We used to talk about basketball all the time, but I don't think I've ever had a conversation about basketball with you. So I didn't know how much you knew.
And no, it was completely fair, and it was true that is like my introduction to basketball. But I mean, we talked about it at the time too. We kind of grew up right when we were sort of getting to the point where we were aware of the world around us. We were like 8 years old.
Yeah.
That's when Jordan and the Bulls were playing off against Utah the first or second time. But so that was kind of a fun little that was my experience with basketball and Michael Jordan. However, that's not, unless we can talk about that at some point today if that's what we want, but we have important things to discuss. We have 2 guests who each have a microphone. That is a first. Yeah.
Oh, we're clapping again.
We're clapping
Lots of clapping
again.
on this. But Lyndon doesn't want to clap.
We got to stop that.
Lyndon's like, no.
There's
first.
so many people here. We should applaud. Right?
And let's clap. No, okay. Oh, okay.
It's like anytime someone tells a good joke, we're going to like...
We're not going to laugh. We're going to clap.
I thought if you clapped, the butler came.
Well, and that's not, I don't know where you
Jeremy,
got that from.
Jeremy thinks
That joke's not going to get an applause.
Jeremy thinks this is a hotel. So
Yeah, Jeremy wants room service.
This apartment has hotel vibes. I will say that. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the podcast. You're our first black guest that we've ever had.
That's
so
true. That's true.
No,
No, we don't even
not
clap.
clapping for that.
We don't even
Okay.
clap for that. That's fine.
I'm trying to think if we've had a person of color on the podcast before.
Yeah.
I think so.
We've had lots of people
We're
of
very
many
diverse.
ethnicities and
Yeah, you
diverse
have actually. I can
backgrounds.
think
Diverse.
of quite a few.
Yeah.
We don't have to start naming them because when white people start naming people's racial backgrounds,
I was like, I'm not gonna go.
It
I'm
never
not gonna
plays
list
well.
the ethnicities. you
Okay,
know.
I'll do it then. I'm not white.
Yeah, you're like, I could do literally anything.
Troy,
I can make fun of black people. I can make fun of white
That's
people. It
true.
doesn't matter, you know.
You
Yeah.
would just like start listing all like the racial slurs. Well, we've had a bleep and a bloop and a blop.
We've had a couple of on the podcast. Wasn't happy about that. Just kidding. I'm kidding, of course. This is all a joke. This is all comedy.
This is a parody.
It's humor, and it's parody, and it's satire, and it's commentary. Jeremy, how are you doing? You haven't said much yet.
Well,
He knows his role.
I know my role of this podcast.
Kind of an Andy Richter sort of a,
I like to bring things up and,
He's got that
make things
mic.
up and go along with everything.
What are you doing with that mic, by
That
the
mic's
way?
perfectly balanced.
Well, when your gut's this big, it helps to not use your hands. So, yeah, works.
You got to take those perks wherever you can get them,
Yeah. Once this sweltering heat goes off, I may not have a gut.
You can take that sweater off. You're allowed to do that, by the way.
No.
Are you boiling hot right now?
No.
Should we put a fan on? Should we take a break and put a fan on or what? We okay?
I'm loving
I'm not-
I
how
like
much
it.
I'm sweating.
I'm not
I'm
sweating.
liking the heat.
Kind of the sauna vibe,
This is a hotel.
4 guys in a sauna, talking about the important things.
Isn't that
I need to
movie?
wrap a towel gently across my lap.
Your lap. Let's all get
Just barely,
barely there, barely settled properly. We can.
Should have brought a rope.
like it's about to fall off.
Something is about to be
Thank goodness
visible.
there's no breeze.
If there was, it would be
Wasn't
gone.
that towel off America's Got Talent?
And that's
a very
another
obscure
reference I don't
reference.
know. And
I've never
it's
watched it.
0
I
for
just-
2 so far.
I just saw it on TV.
Oh, America's Got Talent. They were apparently, actually, thinking of America's Got Talent, my wife was watching American's Got Talent the other day, and there was a guy on it, and his wife died in the Kobe crash. And he was singing on it. You guys look it up. He's actually a pretty good singer, and his kids were on it too.
Damn.
But
And he came on to sing.
Yeah.
So he's parlaying his wife's death into a singing career for himself.
Yep.
I don't feel good about
And what do
that.
we think about that?
I'm not
Lyndon?
sure. He was a good singer. He was okay, but he might go farther in the tournament because of his story, or whatever. Not tournament. Or
Well, it
America's
is
Got
kind of a
Talent.
tournament, but who's not going to vote for that?
Have they verified that he is in fact who he says
I
he is?
feel like you cannot go on live TV, Americans Got Talent, and make up a story like that without them verifying it.
What
Oh,
if
you
they,
can.
Or what if it's just a good story and so they're like, let's just run with it. Like they find out it's fake and they're like, who's gonna check? Just run with it. And I'm very sorry to this man if you ever see this, my flippant remarks about your deceased wife. So what are we talking about today, Caleb? I hear you got a few announcements you got to make.
Yeah, announcement time.
Announcements.
Caleb goes first.
I go first. Okay. Well. Well, I don't know. People don't really know anything about me in the first place, so I feel like.
Oh yeah, I guess we have all this background into who you are, so
No one else knows you.
we
should
Well,
like,
I
we should
feel like a lot of
interview
listeners probably
you.
know who I am.
I've
but
known Caleb since he was 8.
we've been
yeah, probably. Well, probably 12.
Jeremy's over here like I changed Caleb's diapers.
Jeremy's like back when Joseph Smith was the
I
prophet.
don't change
still.
diapers. It just gets me sick.
I'm worried about that. Well, yes, I'm worried about that. I am having a child. I guess that's an announcement.
You're having a child?
Boy or girl?
We don't know yet, actually. We find out, I think, the end of
The pregnancy?
August.
Like when it comes out, I guess we'll know then.
Yeah, we'll find out then.
There'll
But
be no more secrets.
We're gonna
at that
ask
point.
its gender at that point, and we'll see
You
what
can
it
have a
says.
gender reveal.
we will have a gender reveal.
Is it
yes.
going to be like a fireworks show?
I don't know what my wife wants to do. I think probably a cake.
A colored
I
flamethrower.
think maybe a cake. I'm not sure.
Dancing
I
party?
kind of want you to go over the top.
Do you? I don't
There's
feel
been
like
this
we're
trend where
I don't
people
feel
are
like we're the
oh,
kind of people, though.
I think you should start burning stuff.
yeah.
Burn what? Who?
Who?
Question.
You burn someone who is the gender of the child.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just grab
A
the moment-
sacrifice.
You know, there's chemicals that will burn whatever color you want. So
Chemicals.
You can help me with the science of that, Lyndon. Maybe we'll.
yeah, we'll get on top.
Got Walter White over here.
Or you guys can do the gender reveal. Actually, no, my wife wouldn't like that.
Little
Wouldn't that be
cup-
funny?
Ooh, on the podcast.
On Mission
Can we get
Stories.
naming rights?
Can we get the baby on here? That would be groundbreaking.
We've
to
never
get
had a baby.
A
We've
baby.
never had a baby.
That's true. That's true. I don't know.
We've had a black guy now. Now we got to get a baby.
Yeah. I don't know.
Pushing the
I don't
boundary.
know if the baby would be. It wouldn't say anything.
It would
would
maybe
cry.
cry a little
Cry
bit.
maybe.
Yeah.
My
We
baby's
could
not
take
gonna
turns
cry,
feeding it. We could change its poopy diaper.
though. See, that's what I'm scared about.
We have to blur all that.
do
but
not want to change diapers, but obviously I'm gonna have to.
Why don't you want to change a baby's diaper?
I just think it's really gross.
Why?
I think everybody thinks that,
Hey,
but I
Do you
just
change
never.
your
I've
own?
never done it.
Do
Really.
you wipe your own butt?
Yeah.
Once
I
your
do.
baby is born, you're gonna love
That's
to wipe
true.
its butt.
Well, that's true. I'll love it. Him, her.
You wouldn't want to bite. You also wouldn't want to bite its butt, but maybe what I've heard is that the love you have for a child, your own, offspring is going to override all of the disgusting stuff you're going to have to do to take care of it. Wiping the butts, cleaning the puke. That's it.
The snot.
The snot.
And if not, as I've always said, your wife can just do it.
Is that how it's going to be for you, Lyndon, when you have a child?
I have made that joke, and Jasmine has not appreciated it.
And that's
I guess
why-
I say it pretty straight faced, and she's like, "Wait, do you actually believe that?" And I'm like, "No, of course I'll help raise our children."
You're kind of like,
See, my
"No."
mistake. My mistake is saying we're pregnant. You don't say that.
You're
apparently.
both pregnant.
You don't say that. Apparently, I've gone up to people and be like, "Hey, we're pregnant." Don't say that.
You
They hate
say-
it. You say she is pregnant.
My baby mama
or Ashley is pregnant.
is pregnant.
Which is my wife's name.
And then you clarify.
You don't get to share
I'm not
the
pregnant.
experience.
Not me, but she
Wow.
is.
But you're a team.
We're having a child. You could say that.
That's true.
Say, I'm going to be a father.
Yes.
Pregnancy belongs to the woman. The children
Belongs to the
children.
man.
The firstborn male belongs to you.
Ashley will have no say. It's gonna play basketball. No ballet. No.
You're like, I've mapped out this boy's life.
What if it wants to play ballet?
What happens if it
What
wants
if
to
it
be a
wants to
river
be-
dancer?
Play ballet.
Play ballet.
What if it wants to river dance, as Jeremy said? What then?
Well, I'm gonna support
It.
it.
It will no longer be a man.
No
It
longer will be.
somewhere in
And I'm
between.
okay with that.
And
We're
that's
just-
okay, that's fine.
That's okay. If it wants to be its own, and that's fine too.
Whoa.
We'll feed it on regular intervals. We'll give it a dirty blanket once a year, and we'll make sure it gets 3 minutes in the yard every day. Sunshine, vitamin D.
Is that
Just kidding.
You know,
Sounds like
it's
a dog.
It's a miracle, all these children, all getting cared for by the parents they've disappointed so much.
Yeah. And that's
Shout out to all the parents.
hey, shout out to my parents.
Shout out to my parents.
My parents are watching this like a podcaster.
My parents probably will never listen or watch this. They
good,
might.
good for them.
I'm not sure. I think my parents sometimes do. Anyway, so Jeremy,
speak to me?
do you have
got
an
an
announcement now?
announcement?
None of my kids have come forward, so I don't know if I have an announcement to make yet.
But we will
Yeah.
have first dibs.
But you'll have first information. when
If you have a kid,
If you have
you're
a
bringing
kid,
them straight to the podcast.
if you have a kid, how old would it be, Jeremy?
probably 20, so
20s.
So, it would
So you might have a
He's like doing the math.
So you might have a 20-year-old out there.
He's
Is what
like,
you're saying.
January
Okay.
19.
You're like it would.
it
would be
was
35.
It was Y2K.
Yeah.
We
Are we
thought
gonna
the
name?
world
Are
was
we
ending.
gonna name? Are we gonna name the possible mothers it could be?
wow, yeah, that'd be a wild guess.
If the child comes forward, do you get to rename them?
Oh yeah, for sure. If its name is Oliver, he's done.
It's like, hey, Dad, it's me, Oliver. Like, your new name is
Peter.
Peter. You're Peter now.
Jamal. No.
You are the rock upon which my
You are
legacy will be
Jamal.
built.
Peter Jamal.
You are named as Hanson
Hanson?
after the Hanson boys.
As
Okay.
Mbop fame?
Bebop.
Mbop
Well,
doobity bop
that's when he was born, I guess.
That's when he would have been
That's
born.
the song
yeah.
that was playing.
That's-
And it's unclear exactly how old you are, Jeremy, but it's it's a little bit of a mystery. You drop references from all decades, so it's a
you
little.
just gotta guess. Just guess.
Wait a sec. Is Jeremy our oldest guest?
Jeremy, are you time beyond time? Do you? Yeah, I think you are.
He's Gen X.
I know the
Yeah.
80s, 90s, 2000s, and now.
He came out. He went on his mission before Preach My Gospel.
And before raising the bar.
Before the bar was
Before the
raised.
bar.
That's
And
right.
I was
And-
and 2000.
It's like, and I marched with
didn't
Martin
you see
Luther King.
Y2K and
I
that
saw
other
that.
thing that
We
happened?
both saw. We all saw Y2K.
Yeah. That's,
I was like a
Caleb,
little
did
kid,
you? How old are you?
I was born in 91, so yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
but Jeremy was on the front lines.
I was
of-
on the front lines.
Yeah, you're not like 20.
No.
You're not 21.
No, I'm
I
29.
I can also tell you that
You're
I
friggin' 30,
never
bro.
saw a cell phone till like 2003.
Till 100 years later when it was
It
invented.
was
I
invented.
was a grown
fax
After I
man.
machines
was
and
born.
pagers was still in my time.
After the vampire had bitten me and 100 years passed, and then I
Thought the
saw
pagers
the
were awesome.
thing. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know how.
Do you have
that
do
works.
you have a real announcement though, or what?
Um,
Why are you here?
You
You
had
wanted
an-
so
I-
bad to be here.
I thought you had an announcement. You told us.
Because I would love to be. I've always loved to be on this podcast.
Well, we love having you. You don't need a reason.
And I didn't want to be in Lethbridge.
Fair enough.
You did say that the listeners were going to learn something new, and maybe you had new stories.
Yes.
Well,
I'm not putting you on the spot like you have to come up with some new stories
But
right
you
now.
do have to do that
Because-
right now.
okay. I'll tell
we
you
can
this.
let Caleb give his life story, and you can think about it then.
Okay. Done.
Life story.
Yeah,
Just like the more interesting bits.
Okay.
the reader's died. But please start in Haiti, please.
Sure. Okay. I was born in Haiti.
Do you remember Haiti?
Not really.
Oh.
No. I
So
was-
you're
Did you
Haitian.
assassinate the president?
So your
No,
citizenship.
Yeah, president just got assassinated in Haiti. That's true.
You're a Haitian citizen.
I'm not actually.
Okay.
I was born there, but I moved to Canada when I was 5. I
Okay.
was adopted, moved to Canada, and fun fact: my birthday is December 1st, but I don't actually know my real birthday because all it said on my birth certificate is early winter. And so when I moved to Canada, they had to give me a birthday. So my birthday is now
Yo.
December 1st.
That's my sister's birthday.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a good birthday.
It is a good birthday.
It's not too close to Christmas.
Can you imagine if they're like December 25th? That's the birthday. they
My
give.
brother's birthday is actually December 24th.
A really annoying birthday.
Sean's birthday, the Jeremy's old roommate.
Good old Sean.
Jeremy's contemporary.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and then I lived on Vancouver Island. Moved to Vancouver Island, lived there for a long time in my life. And then we moved to China. When I was 12, lived there until I was about 17.
From 12 to 17.
Yeah, so
Damn.
5 years.
You were a teenager in China.
I was, yeah. I when people ask me, I kind of grew up on Campbell River and Campbell River, British Columbia, Vancouver Island, or I say China. I like to say China more, just because
Distinguished?
Gives a little, and then
Gives a
tell
little
the
spice.
listeners, I'd like to eat some watermelon in Mandarin, please.
watermelon. Ooh, I don't actually know how to say watermelon.
You should have just made it
You
up.
taught
No
me
one
at
would-
one time. It's in your memories. I promise you.
Watermelon.
No one's gonna look it up
Search.
for memory.
Deep inside.
Well, I mean, you would say, well, yeah, sure. Oh, watermelon. I don't know how to say that anymore.
How about I want to eat some chicken fried rice?
我要吃炒米饭.
Dude, that's so crazy. You even got like the tone and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very tonal language. So, like, if I said something like, I'm sure if a Chinese person heard me, maybe they'd correct me, but you would say, ma, 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 and that means, did mom get mad at the horse?
That's ma.
Well, you didn't say it right, but yeah. It's kind of
You just
impossible to...
insulted my mother and called her a horse.
But, like, ma means mad, ma means your mother, and then ma is a question mark. So,
So how do you say how I met your mother?
how did you meet your mother?
妈妈妈妈妈妈妈妈
你什么时候见我的妈妈?
Say that in English.
When did you meet my mother?
When did you meet my mother? That's what it's called.
He needs you to retranslate it back into
That's-
English.
Jerry forgot what he asked you.
Just making sure you knew.
The thing about it too is sometimes like I don't do it anymore, but when I was a kid, I'm sure. Actually, none of you. Do you speak different languages?
I've
I don't
never
even
been
know.
to China.
I don't know. Do you guys?
I speak body language.
Okay,
if that
anyways,
counts.
I'm sure anybody else knows who speaks
I
multiple
speak lip
languages that
language.
you think in both different languages. So when someone says something and then they ask me to translate it back, I'm just like, it takes me a while to do it because I literally will just think in that language.
It's a little different what you like. How I Met Your Mother is different from like How Did I Meet? What did you say? How Did I Meet Your Mother was like the translation of what you said,
Oh yeah.
or like When Did I Meet Your Mother?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Which is so funny. It's like whenever there's you can always tell when memes were written by like second language, English second language people, you know, and like the grammar.
Even China, they had signs that English people would come and they'd be like, translate this for me. And so you'd get like shark fins or something, and it wasn't shark fins, it was just like chicken in Chinese, but they got some random English person to translate, and they just had fun with it, and you can tell that they just like randomly translated to the wrong thing. Like menus were wrong in English all the time there.
That's so weird.
But
So you're in China from 12 to 17. So
that's right.
So how much of Haiti do you remember? So you're
Not much at all. I mean, I've been back.
Yeah.
I've been back, so I've been back probably 3 times since.
Yeah.
When I was probably 13, 9, and like 14, the summers.
Yeah.
And so I do remember. It's hard to know if I remember it or if it's just because I went back and
You're sort of piecing it together.
Yeah,
fabricating.
So I'm kind of fabricating memories. I'm not sure, but I don't remember a lot.
Interesting.
I mean, it was a very traumatic time being adopted and moving from like an all black orphanage, and then being ripped out to white people. That was a little bit weird.
Yo, tell us about that.
But I don't really remember so much. I just remember it just being weird and just like for instance, this is kind of a funny thing, but in Haiti or in like any black community, the N-word is not a bad thing. And so like everybody would say that. Even like as a kid, I remember like people just saying that all the time. Like, and then you move to Canada and it's it's like a really bad thing to say. And so I apparently did say it when I was a kid.
You did say it?
Apparently.
And okay, go ahead.
And so that was I do kind of remember that. Just that was a big thing, and like, but I don't know though. Just the difference about, and moving to Canada, everybody wanted to touch my hair. Like I was a kid, and these old people or anybody, I was walking on the street, and these people would just come up and touch my hair.
I get that all the time though, Caleb.
I know.
I feel your pain.
But even in Campbell River, when it's primarily Caucasians on Vancouver Island, there's a lot more culture in Calgary or in Vancouver or like the bigger cities, right? But I moved to a very small town, and it's primarily Caucasians, so they would come up and just touch my hair, and it was annoying.
They would just do it without asking?
Yeah, it was just random people. Random people. I even have a story. I was on a ferry one time with my friends, and I was like 12 years old, and this lady just came up to me, and she just like grabbed my hair, and she started yelling. She was like, ah!
Was it long? How long was it?
It was like, I don't know, it was like 3 seconds, like long enough.
No, like your hair. How long was your hair?
No, it wasn't that long. Like probably what it is now.
Like this? Really?
Yeah, probably what it is now.
See, this, I don't want to touch this. You know, if it was like a little longer, I might want to, you know?
Then the desire could be there.
Here's the thing, though. Have you ever, like, I've been on, like, some dates with, some black women. And
yeah.
They like to touch, like, my hair. You know what I mean? Like, they'll be like, can I, like, touch your hair?
Sure.
It's like,
you have very long, luscious hair, though.
Well,
right?
Thank you. But I just find that funny. It's like that sort of, I think it's like a curiosity with what's, different.
What's different.
You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah, that's true. That's for sure.
That's so interesting. I was talking to someone who's pregnant recently, and they were talking about like how women will just come up and just like touch their stomach. They'll just be like, "Ooh," like with that, and then they'll be like, "Oh, can I, may I touch your stomach?" While the hands are like both on the stomach, and she's like, "I guess,"
Do you know what the funny thing about? Do you know what the funny thing about moving to Canberra River to China was? Is that I feel my siblings are the ones that got, because I'm adopted and I have redheaded siblings.
Yeah.
And in China, that is rare. It's rare, obviously. Redhead's not as dominant as but in China, they just found it fascinating. So they would just like go up to my sisters and just like kind of walk around them really, really closely, and they'd come up and touch their hair or just like try to talk to them. Like my sisters felt like celebrities just like walking around, because everybody would want to take pictures with them. They'd bring their babies to them and be like, "Hey, can I take a picture? Hold my baby." And then they take a snap picture or something. And they hated it. I was just like, now you know how I feel.
Dude, I've heard this. Are Chinese people like racist against black people?
So a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Like so it's a class thing. Right. You know? So I don't know how if I should really be saying this on the podcast, but I feel like the Chinese people think that white people are the highest class, the most money they can. Like for instance, going to the market, you're walking down the market. My sisters would always get grabbed, or like anybody who's white would always get grabbed and be like, because that's money. They would just be like, the Europeans.
So it's like a money thing.
It's a money thing. It's a status thing, right. And they would just be treated better, I guess. And then it would go their own race, and then it would go, and then black people are the bottom.
Yeah.
So they would just think that black people are less than them, I guess.
Okay.
And I don't know if I really felt it as a kid growing up, but I know that that's how how it works socially.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just what I'd heard, and it's kind of like my anecdotal experience, like dealing with. I don't know, is this like a weird thing to say, even? But just like sometimes you hear racist things come out of like Chinese people's mouths about black people. Like that's just kind of what my anecdotal experience.
The thing about Chinese people too, especially in China, is they're very blunt. They don't really care. So like I played on a basketball team, and they would call me xiao. Is like when you call somebody who's
is that the N-word?
No, xiao means small, but it's like how you would say Like you would say like if you were to talk to somebody above you or not above you but older than you, you'd call them like Mr. Like you'd say like Mr. Naglis or Mr. Olson or something, right?
Right.
But somebody who's younger, we don't really have a word for that in English, right? But in Chinese they use the word xiao. And then hey means black, and so they would call me Xiao Hey. Like that's just because they would just call me Small Black.
Small black.
It's like basically like being like, "Hey, black boy."
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds real racist.
But like and there was a bigger. I mean, I don't. He wasn't even fat, but he played basketball. He was athletic, but he was bigger than some of the other people I played with, and they'd call him Xiao Peng, and Peng means fat
Small
or big,
fat.
so they'd call him Small Fat. And that was just normal. And it was not like, it wasn't a racist thing. It was just normal to do that. Or they'd call my siblings like Xiao Bai, which just means Xiao's white, or
Now,
small white.
Did you do that like with them too? Like, was it sort of like a razzing? Like everyone's got their own little like feature. Maybe someone's got buck teeth or something.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
Xiao teeth.
Yeah, there
small
was
teeth,
for
small ears or whatever.
For sure, there was. I mean, I didn't really call them Xiao because they were like my peers, but sure, other people would call them that. Like my coaches would call. Oh, I have a nickname for everybody.
Yeah.
But
Interesting. So you were playing basketball over there. You were playing. Now, man, I'm so interested. So in China, what took you to China first of all?
So my dad's job. So
Okay.
he ran English schools there.
Okay.
So he was working at North Island College, so a college in Campbell River, and it was just not working out. And so he moved our family. I also have a lot of siblings. I have 8 siblings.
I did not know that. That's a
you
lot.
didn't?
No.
Yeah, I do have 8 siblings.
That's a lot.
A lot of them. So there was 4 of us that moved at the time. Bethany, my older sister, me, Isaac, Curtis. Yeah. And so they brought us all to China. And my other siblings, 4 of my other siblings actually all moved to Calgary and eventually got married and stuff like that. And my brother had a house here and Jeremy lived in it.
Yes.
The YSA house. But anyways, there was 4 of us that moved. And then my older sister eventually came and she worked for a different English school. But yeah, it was just my dad's job.
Okay.
And so we lived there. I lived there for 5 years, but my parents actually lived there for 10.
So you had come back. So you're 17. You come back to Calgary,
That's right.
and then what happens after that? And who do you go with? So you move back. Your parents are still in China at that time.
So I live with my brother. I don't think Jeremy wasn't living there at the time. No, Jeremy had already moved out, but I was living with some other YSA people. I don't know, like Ryan Hartford, Doug Nelson. You don't know these people, but actually, I guess Lyndon would know them.
I remember Ryan Hartford.
Yeah, okay. I would live
He
with Ryan Hart.
dated,
I'm Ben Drolet, so it was just a house of YSA guys.
He dated the friend of a girl. I think it was like my first girlfriend post mission was what was her name? Sydney.
They got married.
Yes.
They got married. Okay.
And then they got divorced.
Okay. Well, we're just airing it all. Well, I thought they broke up, and I called her Sadney, and that was just like I was like too soon, Troy. Sad because she's sad anyway.
I didn't know you dated.
yeah.
I didn't know you dated Sydney.
I didn't date Sydney. I dated Lena, who was like her friend.
Oh, that's right, her
Yeah.
friend. I got it.
Yeah,
Yes.
'Cause I was getting confused. I was like, I remember you used to come to the Nagplex, not for Sydney.
No, for Sydney, yeah, for what's her name, Lena.
For Lena. Okay.
Yeah. And
I
anyway,
kind of remember you dating Lena, but
it was like I don't know. That was a whole weird thing.
I've known you for a long time, Drew. I feel like the first
have known each
5
other.
years that I knew you, I didn't really know you though.
We were like characters in the same
Yes.
scene. We were both in the YSA
in the
scene.
YSA scene, but I don't think I had a long conversation. I don't even know if I had actually formally introduced myself to you.
Yeah.
Because at one point, Caleb was king of the North, and Troy was king of the South.
I don't know if you
And
guys-
warring
I was
kings
never.
can't, sit down and break bread together.
I was
Never been a
in
battle of battlefields.
yeah, Caleb was in friggin' I'm thinking of Game of Thrones. What's the North place called?
Winterfell.
Winterfell, and I
Winterfell.
was in King's Landing, I guess. I was not the king. I was never the king of the South. I feel like I was just the jester of the South. I'm the sort of like the court jester. Hello, a tale for the king. And the king was always like, I feel like it was like Jeff Spackman. Like he was like
Oh yeah.
What a guy.
or who else
Trying to
was
become
sort
a
of
dentist in Australia.
hot shite.
Yeah.
Who else? I'm trying to think. Anyway, it wasn't me though.
I wouldn't say I was like any king or anything. I think I just had a
just
lot
a
of people.
popular guy.
I just had a lot of people over at my house all the time. We just had a lot of fun.
You were like an orchestrator. You were like
yeah. I like to do things. I'm an extrovert. Like I'm sure anybody knows that. And
Yeah, yeah.
and I just like to talk to everybody and have a good time. Actually, I
We
think
don't call Caleb the commissioner for nothing.
that's true.
Oh,
Oh,
Jeremy's on it.
Hold on.
the camera has, what's the word we like to say? Betrayed us.
Jeremy, I feel like you need to get in here. I've been talking a lot.
Good job,
Well, I'm trying
Jeremy.
to-
Thank you.
Jeremy has his own episode.
Clap on. Clap on.
Okay.
Clapper.
So you're the commissioner, Caleb, and which means that you're an orchestrator. You make things happen. You organize things.
Yeah, I think Mark Zilcherbaum made up that nickname. Or maybe, was it you or was it Mark? I feel like it was Mark who started calling me the commissioner because I think it was because of basketball. It's because I was organized basketball.
You were a lot of what
March Madness, everything.
my introduction into the North. A lot of it. Well,
You were the commissioner of a lot of things.
yeah. I mean, a lot of me coming to the North was like invitations from you, which I appreciated, and that was sort of. I'm trying to think of when we really.
You know what it
Became
was?
friends.
I think it was you became friends with Lyndon
Maybe
first,
that's
and I
what it
lived
was,
with
yeah.
Lyndon at the time, and you guys and we started going to Denny's, and that's when I
Oh,
feel
those
like
Denny's-
and those
those
Denny's
Denny's
times
runs.
we'd go to Denny's, and I got to know you a lot better.
Yeah,
Those classic Denny's runs.
that's true.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it was around.
Picking up nurses at Denny's at 2
Oh
in the morning.
yeah, Troy picking up
When he's doing his
people and
Blake
bringing them
Shelton
home,
impression.
driving them home, going on dates with them after.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah.
Stole your sweater.
We were at Denny's, and with this, some nurses at a neighboring table threw some jam at us. I think.
Was that it?
Yeah, they threw some jam, and then I was like, "Watch this!" And then I like go over there.
So you threw peanut butter at him?
Yeah, I threw it back at him. I was like, "Never do that again." No, I think I just went over there and started talking to them, and then you guys joined me, and then I went on a date with one of them, and then that went nowhere. But but
I think
Yeah.
I
know
think
Caleb and I like drove a few of them home.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know why we got roped into that.
I think you roped us into that or something.
I
Troy
drove
did.
one of them home.
Well, were they even drunk? Why did they need a ride home? I don't even remember.
They were a little drunk, I think. Yeah,
Maybe that was it.
that's so weird. I haven't thought
But it
of
was
that.
either like they were either going to
So
take
long.
the train or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had some good times
The
at Denny's.
train
We
at
were
2 in
there
the
sometime.
morning?
Yeah.
Oh, the trains stop at 2 in the morning.
They
Anyway.
that's why they threw the jam at us.
Yeah, they actually needed a ride home.
They
They,
needed a
had
ride
no
home.
interest in talking to us. They just
Did
like,
you ever get
these
that
gentlemen
sweater
don't
back?
look sober.
I did. Yeah.
You ever
It's
what?
funny. I got the sweater back. She's like, I want your sweater. And then I think much
right.
to my embarrassment,
I remember.
I think I wore her like small tank top or something. Like that was
Wasn't it a Run DMC sweater?
that she like wanted to wear my sweater. I was like, can I wear your shirt? She like
But wasn't
It's
it?
like-
Was it a Run DMC sweater?
It
Is
was,
that-
yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was. I
my Run
remember that.
DMC sweater. Yeah. So anyway, that was so funny. I haven't thought of that in so long.
Wait, could we go back to China? Because I have a question for Caleb here.
Okay, go ahead. Shoot.
So when you were in
For
China,
Caleb.
I know that you you helped people translate stuff,
Yep.
and I heard a Shaq story in there.
Yeah, I
Can you-
did translate.
can you-
I did
Can
translate.
you
for
tell us
Shaq.
how the big Shaq deal came to you?
The Shaq deal.
The Shaq deal. Well, I was playing on a basketball team, and so Shaq and a couple coaches came to. They were just doing a mini camp and they were scouting players, which they didn't scout anybody, but they were just doing a mini camp and Shaq was there. And one day I was paired up with Shaq, and most of the time I was with what's his name? Was it Clement Johnson? I think that was his name. He played in the NBA. He was like 6'9". He told us, he actually was telling us stories about playing basketball against Moses Malone, who was a famous basketball player. But anyways, and they paired me up with Shaq, and that's the first time. And so I was like nervous talking to him and everything. And the very first, the first interaction I had with Shaq is some little kid came up and he asked me, "Can I get Shaq's autograph?" And I asked Shaq, I'm like, "Hey," in English, obviously. He asked me in Chinese if I could get it. And then I asked him, and I was like, can this kid get your autograph? And he's just like, no. He's just like, go get $50 from your dad. And I was just like, ooh. I was like, are you kidding me? I was just like, whoa. And needless to say, I don't think Shaq is the nicest human being at all. I think a lot of his stories, I don't even know. I mean, he apparently gives out a lot, but he was not nice.
What do you mean?
He was not a nice person.
Go get $50. So he's having you like kind of hustle for him, like
Yeah.
like negotiate, like
Yeah. Anyways, he was there to coach or he was then he didn't even really do much coaching.
How do you say go get $50 from your dad in Mandarin or whatever?
If you want an autograph from
Hee-haw,
Shaq, it's going to be
There's
50
multiple
bucks.
different ways. We're not gonna have me speak Chinese the whole time.
Okay.
But yeah, he was he wasn't the nicest person. I only talked to him for one day, but there was other translators that have him for most of the time. But
Out in Shaq over here.
The
truth on Shaq. We're getting the scoop right here.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
With any other
Hustling
famous
Chinese
people?
kids.
For 50.
I mean, Clement Johnson played in the NBA, and there was some college coach that was for some team in, like, it was an NCAA team, but it was some team in Alaska. I have a picture of it, but I forget his name.
Fairbanks, Alaska University.
But I forget the coach's name.
Okay, well.
Tyler Hansborough's dad was there, actually.
Oh, Mr. Hansborough.
Mr. Hansborough's dad was there because he was coaching for
Jim
some team too.
Hansborough's.
Sorry?
Jim Hansborough.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know his dad's name, but he was there.
Anyways.
Let's get back to
Before Jeremy derails
Sorry, I like to derail stuff and go off on another tangent.
with his questions like he's some sort of interviewer.
like he owns this place.
So you're kicking me off ESPN again?
Caleb was talking about the good times at Denny's.
Yeah, Denny's
was good
the
times.
genesis of our friendship.
Oh, actually, the thing I wanted what sidetracked me a little bit is when we were talking a little bit about how we had parties and we'd invite you over, all that. I'm pretty sure, I think you said this at your wedding, that you met your wife in my basement. Is that right?
No, not in the basement, but upstairs.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go down into the...
You went up
to
to
the
the,
deep...
you started in the basement and
No,
then you
I
went.
could never go down into the basement at
So we
Caleb's
used to
house
have
parties.
these
the spirit
sweaty-
the spirit would leave.
Yeah, we had these really kind of bad, well, I would say bad, just really sweaty,
Just
raunchy, ridiculous dance parties. I'd play a lot of rap music and get all the wives saying the mood.
All those white kids all hot and heavy with the rap music.
And it's for reference. At Lyndon's wedding, I emceed it, and
The best
and I
MC
said
ever.
they met at one of Caleb's dirty, dank, sweaty basement dance parties.
I actually didn't know that until Troy said that at the wedding. You never told me that, Lyndon.
Well, I don't know if it was like on the dance floor. I never recall seeing Lyndon sort of getting
I
it
told
down
the
on the
story.
dance
I
floor.
actually-
Lyndon and his
watched
wife
my
met
wedding
over
video.
chips and dip.
Lyndon was always like doing magic tricks and sort of holding court upstairs. You know, that was sort of Lyndon.
That's true.
Then
Lyndon
spaghetti was
Lyndon
involved.
Lyndon was the entertainment upstairs.
He's like, now everyone, let me tell you know, he was always explaining something. That was his like seduction.
Well, you both
style.
were. You both were. You both had like these flock of women that would walk, that would be. You'd sit on my couch or at anybody's couch or wherever you guys were, and you'd have these flock of women, and you'd show them magic tricks, or you'd tell jokes, or you'd like show them
We
different
put on
things.
like vaudeville.
You'd put on a
Like,
show for them.
Lyndon, what do you think about this? And like we would have little vaudeville, little pantomimes for the women. We would do pantomime shows for the ladies, and they would.
Jasmine, when you listen to this, Caleb is greatly exaggerating these flocks of women.
Yeah, it was a lot of like Lyndon and I sitting in a corner
Well,
laughing.
Lyndon, I don't know why you would say when you listen to this, because it's true you had flocks of women, and she won.
She
You
won.
know what?
She won.
Yeah, Jeremy.
She
you're
won.
right. I was
So
off.
she shouldn't be mad or sad. She won. So she's
She
the
won.
best of them all.
Jeremy,
She won.
every
She unlocked your heart.
Yeah, she's the
Every-
best of them all.
every time Jeremy speaks, I kind of have to like decode what he said. Like I have to like, all right, she won. Okay, yeah. It's like I have to decode. It's got to run through my algorithm. So we're big party boys. You know, early 20s. Caleb's the commissioner. This is the YSAC, and it's like, you know, Miami in the 80s, pretty much.
Jeremy was the commissioner before me, though.
Yeah, we had 300 people parties back in the South.
Yeah, we got to get back to
Speaking
this.
of parties with Jeremy,
Gotta get
I
partying
remember we had to chase Jeremy down the street after he got offended.
Oh, with the
Did
T-shirts?
not get offended.
It was like there was T-shirts. There was
right.
the angel on the Christmas tree was
Okay,
Jeremy.
but
That's
tell
right.
them why.
They made
That's
effigies
right.
of Jeremy.
There's a shirt that had my face on it,
Yeah.
and people are
Can I
getting.
say who was wearing it?
and people were like,
Yeah.
wearing it.
Can I say
As
who
soon
was
as I
wearing
walked
it?
in.
Say it,
Am I
yeah.
allowed to? I think it was Layla Wheatley, right? She was wearing your.
We're naming names.
It was
Dude,
Layla. She
there's
First
more
and
than
last.
there's more than her.
Oh really? I think there's a picture of you and her.
Yeah, there's a picture.
I saw
She-
several people wearing the T-shirt.
And so then I was like, I'm done with this. I couldn't walk home because I was in the south and I lived in the north.
That's right.
So I just walked to the
Ray
s-
drove, right?
'Cause
Ray
you
drove
drove
all
with
of us.
us.
So then I walked to
Yeah.
the store.
And it's
Had
December,
a conversation in
obviously,
the store with the clerk.
and we're like, Jeremy's gonna freeze to the sidewalk
And so then I went
because
in,
he's offended.
I went in to the car. Well, you guys partied. I didn't.
We
wanna-
didn't party a
No.
minute. We were so worried.
We
about
came and
each other.
got you.
Oh yeah, I guess so.
And we're like,
Ray
come on.
sat in the car with you. I remember Ray was just like, we got to go get him. And we went out there and we just sat
But
with
honestly,
you.
who starts having a shirt party with your face on it?
You didn't even see a dime. From
I
those
would have been
T-shirt
honored.
I
sales.
didn't.
And you were the angel on their Christmas.
And I was
tree.
on the angel of a
I don't
Christmas
remember that,
tree.
but that's.
And I thought that was like the dumbest thing ever.
They made Jeremy into a caricature.
You just got to roll with those punches, though, Jeremy.
I did. I rolled with that one.
By storming out.
So,
But
so
that's-
no,
that's
but
when
I
you
didn't
retired
storm out.
from-
I grabbed everyone's shoes I can find, threw them on the roof, threw them outside.
Did you really do that?
Yeah,
He took an upper decker.
That's not rolling with the
I
punches,
did take
Jeremy.
I did take an upper decker.
That's
in someone's
revenge.
House.
That's petty revenge for a
Hey.
harmless prank.
I was still at the house.
For Jeremy, that's the high road.
That's the highest road Jeremy can take.
They were having fun. I was having fun.
Yeah, we're all having fun
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
So through
You're not allowed to use this toilet, by the way.
I threw random people's shoes on top of the roof, hid some coats everywhere. I think I grabbed a coat, put it in water, and then threw it outside. There was people who couldn't find their shoes. I tied people's shoes together. It was good times. And then I got told I had to leave by somebody.
Who?
I think Lyndon grabbed me, said we gotta go.
Couldn't have been me.
We
I
all
would've
drove in
been
the same car.
Yikes.
It wasn't the same.
You know,
party.
this is going on the internet, right?
Yeah, I know. People
Oh
know.
no,
that.
I think I think I do remember seeing Jeremy toss a pair of shoes on the roof, and I was like, "This is out of hand."
Is this going to be like a deleted episode where, it's like we have to go
Oh,
back
why?
and somewhere?
Because Jeremy tossed some shoes.
I don't know.
On the
I'm right
roof
here.
Lyndon, I don't know.
I'm not.
20 years ago.
I'm not upset about this.
It wasn't 20.
Okay, he's saying it.
a couple of years ago.
And the
I don't
people,
endorse
the
it.
people
I
at
don't
that
know.
house aren't going to listen to this.
They might.
And if they do, then they know who the culprit.
Well, someone might send it to them, though.
That's
maybe.
good, though.
But this is good. You're right. Let's keep dishing the stories. Let's,
Hey. Jeremy's the one telling the story here.
True enough.
We have his full permission.
So-
Anything I say in this podcast, I'm not going to say no
Wait,
afterwards.
was that it? No, I'm thinking of a different.
let's
rebroadcast
go
it?
back.
Different
Let's
party.
get back to the esoteric stories in a little bit. I want to ask Caleb a question or two. To kind of get you up to speed onto where you are today. You went to university. You worked at some various establishments,
Sure.
and now you're married.
Yep.
Gonna have a baby.
That's right.
You're in the church though.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your relationship. This is what I'm curious about. Because before we started this episode, I was like, I heard a rumor, and you're like, the rumor is true. And you're like, what's the rumor? I was like, that you flew the coop, kind of a thing. What is your relationship with the church? How do you feel about it? Is this too uncomfortable to talk
No,
about?
we can talk about it for sure.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
No, we can talk
I
about
love
it. I mean,
these
I'm
stories.
not gonna get into as deep as Alex Williams did or anything
Sure,
like that.
yeah.
But sure, I personally don't have anything against the I wouldn't say against the church.
Obviously, you have
I don't
something
hate the
against the
church.
church
Okay?
if you're leaving.
I don't hate the church. I don't think that the members are bad people. I'm not going to associate myself with the members. Nothing
Right.
like that. Most of my friends are LDS, and it's going to continue to be that way. All of my family's LDS. All of Ashley's family's LDS, right?
Yeah.
I think I just have a couple things that just I don't agree with. Personal revelation, I think is one thing, or personal revelation, I think is something that I don't necessarily believe in.
Okay.
I don't necessarily believe in the leadership of the church. I don't.
Local or at the head level or all of it?
I would say local more so.
Okay.
I don't understand. I don't understand how people can be put into certain places and dictate people's lives.
Yeah.
I think you guys kind of talked
2 episodes. I think the last 3. Every time there's been a guest on, we've been like bishops are trash. And
Yeah.
they should be done away with.
Yeah, and
like,
I kind of feel that way too. And a couple bishops kind of made me
right.
But you guys definitely talked about that. But I feel like and you guys said that like every week, I think it was you that said that every week that bishop was ruining someone's life, and they were.
Yeah.
Like it was every week that there was something new that they were ruining someone's life about, and
Yeah.
I'm like, why is this person?
And I remember hearing about it and being like, there's no way that this person is this incompetent and thoughtless. But
the whole thing about the reason why they're there is because the Spirit told them to be there, or that the stake president got a revelation to bring this person into this position.
Yeah, the idea that God put
the idea that God put that person there is beyond me.
These people of a certain socioeconomic status,
Yeah, and that's how I kind of feel about
into
it.
positions of leadership.
This
wow,
guy
God
that grew up
again.
with the stake president.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This guy who's business partners with the stake president, another business owner in the same community
Sure.
as
Sure.
Another
It's
guy
just
that
like,
runs
let's just call it what it
insurance.
is. It's like it's cronyism. It's like people got their friends and
Yeah, and I feel like
I get it,
it's very
but let's call it what it is. Let's not say that God is doing this.
yeah, it's I feel like the church is a dictatorship in a way. In a way, do you know what I mean? Like
In some ways, yeah, sure.
yeah. I don't think that tithing really makes a lot of sense. I mean,
Not anymore.
I don't think that.
Oh, we blew the lid off that, didn't we?
Oh, we friggin'
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
popped it right off.
Everyone knew the church was rich.
Rich as
I
hell,
mean,
yeah.
you guys talked about the $100 million hedge fund that they basically have.
$100 billion.
$100 billion hedge fund.
We just didn't know how rich they were, and that $100 billion is just such a.
That's not even their net worth.
That's just a hedge fund.
That's
Basically.
just
that's not what
that's
they're.
their slush
That's
fund.
basically what they're just getting from tithing. That's like not even. Yeah. No, I get that.
That's not even just tithing. They took tithing and rode the good markets of the last 15 years, and now here we are. But
yeah,
did we ever catch up on the claim of like that they went from like 2020 basically took them from like 100 billion to like 160 billion just because like the markets in 2020 were crazy and they had some good positions.
I don't know if you guys ever talked about that, but
we were not able to verify that.
Yeah.
The only stat that I got was that they increased their holdings of Tesla by 1,300%.
Is it true that the church used
That would've done it.
Isn't that true that the church used
Tesla.
to show their financial statements basically, and then they just kind of stopped?
Well,
Like at
Yeah,
one
they
point
They're
just
not taxed. They don't have to show nothing.
Yeah, they don't
no,
Yeah.
but they showed it to the church publicly, like people could look it up because they were just I don't know, maybe I'm wrong here. But
I don't
felt
think
like,
so. I think
no?
that's a part of the controversy is that they're very non-transparent with how.
Well, no,
their
I feel like they're
financial
not now. I feel like in
dealings.
the 80s they were.
Maybe
or
they were,
In
I
the
don't
70s
know.
they were.
But I know
and then
now
they
that
just
they're
just
not.
stopped doing that.
Yeah.
And the other thing about the church that bothers me a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean, not a little bit, a lot. I am black.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that.
Yeah, I mean, black in the priesthood. I mean, the fact that the blacks didn't get the priesthood until 1978 is
It's not that long ago.
it's not that long ago, and
It's the 80s, basically.
yeah, and
Hey,
I know that Joe
the
Smith was
70s.
baptizing black people. It was Brigham Young that stopped that basically. And I mean, I know the stories. I know I know that he was kind of pressured into doing it and everything like that. But still, I just think that I have a friend that basically just thinks he's black. And you guys know him. I don't know if I want to say his name on this podcast, but he's done a lot of research on it. You kind of know who I'm talking about probably, and he's done.
Oh, we've wanted to get him on the podcast.
Yeah, he's done a lot of research on it, and he basically thinks it's a mistake. He just says it's a mistake, and I'm like, well,
Is
if
he-
if this church, if this is the true church, then and we're supposed to be above, or we're supposed to be ahead of the times.
Mm-hmm.
Why did this happen so late?
Well, it's blacks in the priesthood. It's polygamy. It's
Yeah.
like we change a little too late with the times. That's
Yeah.
sort of like the running theme of the church is that like we do change, but it's always a little too late. It's always a little behind. Think about like gay kids too, like the thing with like gay kids can't get baptized, the children of gay parents or whatever can't get baptized, and then it's like, oh wait, looks like we can. Even like the social media handling now is actually, it was good for a while, and now it's like become like terrible. We talked about
Can't
that a
wait
little
till
bit.
BYU Idaho is allowing shorts.
Right. Yeah.
Now that all being said, I think
not to equate all of those things as like they're the same, but like it's just a theme that the church is always a little behind, a little late.
Yeah, that's how I
catching
kind
up,
of that's how I
you know?
kind of feel. Now that being said, I just want to clarify. I do think the church, the organization of the church, like the organization of the primary, young men's, young women's coming up, and just teaching people good morals. Like I think the church teaches great morals, and I'm not going to keep my kids from that. If they want to go to church, I'll let them go to church. You know, they're obviously going to be around it and things like that. I'm not going to be like, you can't go to church because I don't believe in it or something like that. You know, I think that.
Are you going to get your kid baptized?
If they want to be baptized, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's a good question. Like, what do you believe? Like, what's your testimony at this point?
Sure, I believe in God. I believe that prayers are answered. I don't necessarily think that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the only true is the only true church, and that's the fullness of the gospel.
Yeah,
because that's what believes, right? That it's the only place that you can have the fullness of the gospel and receive exaltation, basically, right?
You don't believe that.
No, but that's what the church believes.
That's what the church believes.
Yes,
yeah.
but I don't believe
that the church is the only way.
Yes,
and you're not you're not in agreement with that.
Yes.
You said that, you said you believe that prayers are answered, but you also said that like personal revelation is not a thing that you necessarily believe in. Can you sort of piece those apart? Like, what do you think is the difference between those two things?
Oh, sorry. Did I say personal revelation? Okay, I definitely did not mean personal revelation.
So
you're pro personal revelation.
I am pro personal revelation, but I'm not pro revelation for other people.
Can I just say, whenever you're good, like when you sit back like this, but whenever you come forward, it's just the way the mic works. It's very like.
No, sorry. Did I say? I did not mean that. I meant revelation for like other people, like bishops receiving revelation
for you,
or yes, for me, or priesthood blessings.
You're not with the priesthood blessings.
I had a priesthood blessing. I've had lots of priesthood blessings in my life, but there was one priesthood blessing that I had that I was promised something. I have health issues. I have major health issues, and when I had a kidney transplant, I was promised that if I took all my medication, that I would have no problems with my kidneys anymore. Yeah. My kidneys failed.
Yeah.
After that, and I don't think it was I don't think it was the lack of faith. I don't think it was the lack of not taking my medication. I don't think it was the lack of.
So you followed what was prescribed in the blessing.
Yes, and again, and again, that could have been just the person, and they might have been a mistake or things like that. But I've heard of a lot of stories where people have been promised things and blessings, and I just feel like it's just coming from that person, and it's how they feel, and the spirit I just feel it's just a good feeling that people feel when they agree with something. You know, I don't necessarily think could be the Holy Ghost. I mean, obviously I could be wrong, and I might go to heaven, and I'm completely wrong.
Pearly gates, you're like, that podcast didn't do well for you.
Yeah, and
I'll give you the same promise I gave Alex Williams. You can be my ministering angel.
You're just building up a harem of ministering angels there, Lyndon.
So I guess that's
all men.
I guess that's in a nutshell about how I feel about the church. Again, I don't hate it or I just think that there are some things in the church that I don't agree with.
And to preface all this, before we started recording, Caleb basically said if his ministering brothers would just bring him a pizza, he'd probably come back to church.
I said cookies. I said if you bring me cookies, maybe I'll come back.
But pizza's better though.
Yeah, cookies are better.
We said you're one heart attack, heart attacking the door. You're one of those away from full fellowship.
Yeah.
You'll be the bishop if they ask you.
Yeah, why not?
You'd be the best bishop.
Can't wait for Bishop Britton.
You'd be sick. Okay, so there's a party at my house later though. You coming to that or what? Someone's I masturbated earlier today. Yeah, it's all good. I don't know. Whatever, man.
Who cares?
You coming tonight?
Everybody did on the missions. It doesn't matter.
Not me. Not me.
Not everyone.
Not everyone.
I'm self-righteous. No, I was gonna say though, I'm totally with you on just sort of I think a lot of times personal revelation. This can happen. That happened to me. That's a lot of sort of my experience where I thought that God was gonna, telling me to do a thing. I go down that road. A negative result is the outcome of it. sort of similar to your situation where like you get a blessing, you're promised something, it doesn't come true. And it sort of comes back to like, okay, now can I even really trust personal revelation, quote unquote, or should I, maybe I, like for me, my sort of takeaway from that, my experience was I need to pass all of my thoughts and feelings through my own personal logic filter. And if it doesn't pass like a logical standard, like if it doesn't make sense, maybe like I shouldn't be trusting to do that. Do you know what I mean? Or I shouldn't put any hope in that. And so and it served me well. I mean, it's like we can only deal with the reality that we're faced with. And I think sometimes, yeah, and it's like, it's frustrating sometimes to hear, like, I feel like I've used this example before, but whenever people are like, God told me I need to move to Arizona and I don't know why, but I'm trusting that I should do it. And it's like, well, who you got in Arizona? What's in Arizona?
See,
do you have any reason to go there?
See,
like,
that's
no.
that's part of it too. Like my parents' excuse for moving to China.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Was that they had personal revelation to do that.
Oopsie, sorry.
And
Hey, why not?
to be honest, like I love the Chinese people, but it's not my culture. It was difficult for me. I didn't speak the language. I had no friends. We were homeschooled for most of the time. It was a very difficult time for me in my life and for my siblings. Like I know a lot of my siblings are very angry about it, like a lot more than I am, and they feel like their childhood my littlest brother. Hopefully he doesn't listen to this, but he might be mad at me outing him. But my littlest brother says he thinks his childhood was ruined, and he's not in the church anymore. My other younger brother isn't in the church anymore, and I feel like the reason why they're not in the church is because my parents decided that every decision that they made was because of God, and my siblings don't like that decision, and so because of that they associate God, or they associate the church with ruined childhood, basically. Yeah, and with a ruined childhood. And I don't necessarily think that's the reason why I'm out not going to church, but it's the reason why my siblings don't go to church. And so I think we need to be careful about like saying God made me do this.
Yeah. Putting the blame on God. Because I think I'm of the opinion, and like the older I get, I'm like, I think we talked about this on Cindy's episode where like, I think when God really comes in and like gives you some revelation, it's always like, should I help this person? You mean like maybe I should like reach out and like talk to this person? God's like, yeah, do that. That's the thing you should do. You know, and he's less concerned about like, what should my major be? You know, should I take accounting or finance? He's like, I literally do not care.
Yeah.
You know, I think he's more concerned when it's like, when you're trying to help a person. I think that's really maybe all he's concerned with. That's what I wonder. You know,
I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think that I know that people pray about who they're gonna marry. Yeah. And if they don't get an answer, they're like, I've heard stories where, oh, God didn't give me an answer, so I'm not gonna marry this person. I think that if you're gonna marry, like, I don't necessarily think God cares who you marry. As long as they're a good person and you're a good person, there's tons of people that could be married and have a happy life. Yeah. You know, and I've heard stories about, hey, I'm not going to marry this person because I went to the temple and God didn't give me an answer, or I didn't feel good about it. And I was just like, I don't think he cares. Unless they're like a really, really awful person and you need to get out of the relationship because it's abusive or something. Yeah. But I feel like but I mean, those should come to fruition beforehand.
But using the temple as like a reason to break up with someone. It's like, just break up with them because you don't like them.
Yeah. There you go.
But then you should listen to your friends before you go to the temple.
Yeah, well, I've heard these stories before, you know, where it's like it's always like the girl, they come home from the mission. And I've heard this several times, where like they come home from the mission and nothing, you know, I don't want to like, I don't want to sound mean or anything, but it's usually like women that come home from the mission and they're like these oracles from God, and like they do every step they take. They can't take it without God telling them to take it, you know? And it's like, well, you know, I had a little indigestion in the temple, so now I got to break up with you. It's like you said, just break up. Just take responsibility for it. Leave God out of this, because I've been saying.
I think you hit a point there. I think when you stop blaming God for things, like we can't just always say, hey, God made me do it. Yeah. God's the reason why I moved to China. God's the reason why I
It's like, no, I wanted to move to China.
Yeah, I wanted to do it,
You know?
or I want
to break up with
I
you.
didn't want to marry that person,
Yeah.
or whatever it is you wanted to do.
God told me to get this car, so I did.
Yeah, like
I was told
no,
by
God doesn't
God
care about the car you drive.
to buy a Porsche,
So-
and now I'm bankrupt. You know,
So
it's God's fault.
I was talking to a friend. Well, she's not a friend, but like
Well, what is
Well,
she?
who is she then?
she's a person.
What have you
that
done
I'm
with
not
this
interested-
person?
Yeah, what
A
does this
person that
mean?
I'm not interested in.
Okay.
Person of not interest.
An acquaintance?
She told me that.
How do women like the way you speak about like your past relationships with women? How does anyone?
Camera.
Oh, hold on.
I'm gonna go back.
Well. We lost
No,
Jeremy.
you can listen. The audio is all still on, by the way. Once the camera goes out, like we can still hear everything.
Jeremy went to the bathroom. We were trying to ask him.
Anyway,
Jeremy's
we were trying to
in
ask
the
him
middle
important-
of a story.
We were trying to ask him important questions. He's like, I'm out. Too much.
Jeremy's been
You pushed-
silent this whole time, and then the moment we
You
ask him a
pushed him
question,
about how he interacts with women, and he's like, I'm going to the
I gotta go to the bathroom. He's gotta like go text some people. Yeah. What were we so
revelation.
I
See,
was-
here's my thing that I wanted to. The beauty of like the priesthood blessing
Okay.
is they make that promise and say it works. Next
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
you know, you're a mission president telling that story to your missionaries
Yeah.
about how the power of the priesthood healed your kidneys.
Sure.
Or it doesn't work out and suddenly you're like, wait a second, it's almost like it had nothing to do with anything.
yeah. Well, it's like
Sure.
So it's like people are banking on like things going right, so then they can credit like priesthood, revelation.
yeah. It's like sniping in first-person shooters. You either look like amazing, like you're cracked out of your mind, or you look ridiculous because you missed the shot. Like if you make the crazy snipe shot, it's like you're the best to ever do it, and if you miss it, you look like a fool. And I think that's the way it is.
And for
with
all
these.
our first-person shooter gamers,
yeah,
they'll get that reference.
and for everyone else, you won't. But the point here is that
Jeremy's back to answer his questions
Jeremy's
about his
back.
relationship with women.
who is this woman?
I'm not gonna mention a name, but she's a little crazy.
You can't say that and expect women to want to continue to have like
But
friendships with you.
I don't care if they want to. If they want to have a friendship with me, they can have a friendship.
Dude,
with
you're
me.
such
If
an
they don't-
alpha dog. I
But
love
if they
it.
don't, then I don't care. It's one less person I have to say
Like-
happy birthday to.
What?
Jeremy is the ultimate omega male.
The
So
Omega male.
she was telling us, there's like a bunch of people in the room. She was telling us, yeah, so I got rid of my car because God told me to. So now I'm taking the bus. And if I want to go places, you have to call for a taxi. I'm like, so why did you get rid of your car? Because God told me to.
Why would God tell you to do that?
I'm like, so you're wasting money on other things? She's like, well, God told me to. I'm like, God didn't tell you to. It was all in your head.
yeah, and that's something that's going to be hard for a lot of listeners to hear, you know, especially if they rely upon those. If someone thinks that way, it's like telling them Santa, and that's kind of a condescending way to say it, but it is a little bit like Santa's not real, like something that a foundation.
Santa's not real?
He is real. No, he is.
Santa is real.
Satan
He's
is
But
real in
hypothetically, if he
real
was
in our
Oh, I
hearts.
thought you talked about Santa, not Satan.
anyway, so
Troy's like, I don't know what you're talking about. We're moving on.
got to decode that. Okay, and decoded. Moving on. Not important. I was going to ask this question of like, do you think there's a problem in the church where people do not take? I mean, we talk about the importance of agency, right, and like being responsible for your own self. Do you think we have a problem? And it's sort of a rhetorical question because I think the answer is yes. Where the problem where people are not taking responsibility for their own actions and they put too much of, their actions, their everything, their beliefs on like, well, God, like this person with the car. It's like obviously they're taking no responsibility for how stupid of a decision that was to just like get rid of a car. Why? What is that in the Doctrine and Covenants? Does it not say that it's got to make sense in your mind and in your heart? And people often skip the mind part.
Oh, yeah.
90% of the time people are like just not thinking about sort of does this make sense? It's not passing that test. And they're just like, I have a feeling, that same feeling I feel when I watch, Saving Private Ryan, and Matt Damon says, "These are the only brothers I got." Good feeling, that's God. You know what I mean? And so
why not?
I mean, listen, it's like, I think that's the sentiment is resonating with you, where it's like brotherhood, sacrifice for your loved ones, it's like, wow.
True principles.
True principles. And it's like, Bing, that's resonating, but does that mean anything beyond that? Like, that's a good principle?
It's like,
maybe
does
not.
the Spirit just bring back to your remembrance true principles, not about what you should eat for dinner?
Do you pray what you eat for dinner?
No, that's the point. He doesn't.
That's the point.
Thank you for clarifying that, Jeremy.
So anyway, that's a bit of a side. Well, not really, because we're sort
So
of
that's
talking
why you
about
called it quits.
Yeah.
some of the reasons.
Sure. I mean, I still go. I still will go to activities, and I'll still like interact with LDS. I mean, it's not like I'm not gonna.
We're all LDS here.
I'm not gonna go take my memories out of the church and like,
Right.
Like I'm just.
Yeah.
It's whatever. It's just I'm gonna live my life. That's what it comes down to. Is I'm
Right.
just gonna live my life. If the church has an activity that I think I'm gonna go to, I like it. I'm going.
But you're not gonna let them, and that's kind of where I'm at too. Where
Just a couple of buffet Mormons.
yeah, right. You're gonna take what works. You're gonna leave what doesn't.
Yeah.
And if someone tries to like get up in your face about anything, it's like, oh, no, you don't understand. I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
you don't tell me anything what to do.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
the captain of my own ship, and me and God sort of have an agreement. You know?
I mean,
An agreement that
My
you'll
life
all be
is-
my
my
ministering
life-
angels.
yeah, my life is good. I got married. I'm doing fine. Like,
Now, what
just
does your
whatever.
wife think about all of this? Are we allowed to talk about what she thinks, or are you
Hi.
speaking for yourself
Let's
here?
get
I
her
might
on the
be a little
horn.
bit careful. I mean, her family knows that she has some beef with the church as well. So we both don't go to church.
Yeah.
Or
Does she feel how you feel, or
she has different
different problems?
She has different things about
Issues?
the church. Yeah, she has different issues about the church than I do. She, like we said this before I came on the podcast. I even said that I'm not going to go in there and bash the church or whatever because I don't need to, and I don't feel like that's like I don't have any hate toward it anyways. And what we said was, she's like, yeah, I don't really agree with everything you think, but I know you don't agree with everything I think. But we both have different issues with the church. In different aspects of it.
Fair.
Yeah.
Can we talk about blacks in the priesthood a little bit more?
Sure.
When did that start to be? When did you find out about it? When did it become? Was it always
when did I
something
find
that
out?
bothered you? Yeah.
To be honest, I don't remember a exact date that I found out that blacks didn't have the priesthood, or like there was a lot of multiple things that made it more. I don't know. It cut me a little bit more deep, I think.
Yeah.
I think the first one was when I was I think I was like 10. No, I was older than that because I was going to the temple. So I was probably like 12.
At least 12, yeah.
Yeah, I was 12 or 13, I think. Actually, I think it was my sister's wedding. Sonia's wedding. So I would have been like maybe 13. And back to the N word, a lot of people in the church were not people in church, or sorry, not adults in the church, but like
Kids
in the
Yeah,
church
yeah.
were like using the N word
They'd
and
throw
stuff.
it around,
throw
yeah.
it around me, and then I knew it was bad, and I knew that it was, and it really cut me deep and things like that. And so I went and talked to a black member of the church in the temple in Seattle, and he talked about about blacks in the priesthood, and he said like the N word in his growing up was just a thing, and it was for me too until I moved to China. And he's just like, it's not a big deal. He's just like people will use anything to try and insult you. Like it doesn't have to be like if you weren't black, it would be something else, But the thing that really stood out to me is he's just like, yeah, and he started talking about blacks in the priesthood, and that's when I really realized that it wasn't that long ago. He's like, in my lifetime is when I was able to get the priesthood.
Yeah.
And I never really thought about that before because I was still young, and 1978 seemed a long time,
Yeah.
for me. But I realized it wasn't that long ago. It was like in my parents' lifetime. Like my brother was born in 79. Like, or my oldest brother was born in 77.
Damn.
So, and my dad served his mission in Africa. before the priesthood was.
Wait, what?
He served his mission in South Africa.
Oh.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
Yikes.
in that time frame, like my dad served his mission from 1976 to 78, I think actually. No, it was before that because it would have been.
I was like, he had a child.
No,
in
it would have been
77?
before that. It would have been before that. He had a child in 77, so it would have been before that. So my dad was like he served in South Africa, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, basically it just became more like this wasn't that long ago for me.
Yeah.
That was like the first time that it felt like, okay, that wasn't actually that long ago. And then some other times I remember I was sitting at work. I was in a lunchroom at Apple, and it was an older black guy that was one of my coworkers. I guess he wasn't that old. He was probably like maybe 10 years older than me at the time, but I was like 20 or whatever. I was young. It's like, well, I was probably younger than that. It was my first job out of high school, and I was working at Apple, and I was 18, kind of still naive and didn't really know a lot about the history of the church or anything like that.
Yeah.
But he was talking to me about the church, and he's just like, so how can you be in a church that doesn't is he basically said against gay people and against black people, and I was like, what do you mean? Like, and then he kind of went into it a little bit more and just like the history of it, and he was quite versed, like he knew a lot about it. And that was another time that it was just like, okay, that was kind of hurtful for me to hear, and I didn't really have an answer. I didn't really have an answer for him.
Yeah.
I didn't have an answer for him. I didn't have.
You hadn't even been. This is like kind of the first time you're being exposed to that.
Yes.
And you're like, now I don't know how to feel.
Yeah, and that was it. And then just, I don't know, as I got older and my adult years, I did a little bit more research, and it just kind of hurt me a little bit more and a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it came down to for me. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And maybe for those who are not entirely familiar with this, we can go over exactly the situation. So like the church is started officially in 1830. It's founded in 1830, officially. And then I believe it's and the Joseph Smith is the prophet until 1847. 47, something like that.
I couldn't tell you the exact date.
I wanted to say 44, but that's too soon.
1840,
That's
somewhere in
only,
there.
14 years after the organization.
You're just talking about when he was assassinated?
Yeah. I'm not sure when it was. I remember
40.
He was 43 when he died, I think. Joseph Smith. Let's look it up.
He was 14 in 1820.
He was.
So he was 24 in 1830.
What the hell is going on? I got up, my thing's not working.
Jeremy, bring that up for us, please.
June 27th, 1844.
That's when he died?
So he was assassinated?
Okay.
I nailed it.
Yeah.
And then there was I don't know, like a 10-year period of sort of interim. Was it 10, or how long was this period where it's like there was no prophet?
I don't think it was 10 years, but because I
5.
feel like 47 is isn't that like when they roll into Salt Lake Valley? Like,
Yeah.
you're talking about the Sunni and Shiite Mormons.
Yeah. yeah. So then there's a bit of a period where there's not an official prophet, but then eventually, and it's sort of like the 12 is, acting.
There's a lot of different denominations of the church.
Yeah.
People are
there's split-offs happening.
off, yeah.
And then Brigham Young becomes basically it's like Brigham Young was simply the dominant branch of the church. Like that's kind of how it's interesting because we have all these different like sects of the church. Emma was hold on.
A little camera. Yeah, the people that believed it should be the son of Joseph Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you clapping over my explanations?
Well, don't explain while we're clapping now. Explain. So Emma was the
You're not even going to edit those claps out.
No, they're in. Emma was
I don't know if she was a big figure in all this.
She was.
Oh, she was.
Yeah, because her son,
Was she the one that was proposing that it should
no
be?
polygamy, none of that. There was a lot. It's so funny. I
Didn't
think
her son die in that, though?
some what?
Didn't her son die in that?
Well, she had lots of
Yeah,
children die.
some. Yeah. So she thought that like her son was the rightful heir to the throne. to the head office of the church, and then
The throne to the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
We're talking about Game of Thrones, heir to the throne.
she really
Iron
was.
Throne,
She was
the
a
brass
Cersei.
throne.
You know, she was a Cersei. She's like, my kid's gonna be, you know, the prophet, and
Joffrey?
Joffrey the prophet. And no, but she was very, you know, anti-polygamy. Brigham Young was just like, I guess he was just like the strong figure in the church.
Well, he was the most senior apostle at the time.
Yeah.
But there were actually apostles that had been excommunicated.
Yeah.
That would have been more senior than him, and they were trying to slide back in to be like ready to take over.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's like, nah.
And then there was like a big meeting, and I think it was just that the majority of the people wanted to go with Brigham. Brigham, you know, he went with everyone out west. They land in Utah. Now Utah they established, and Brigham Young is basically, you know, he's the governor of the state. He basically creates Utah and is a big major part of the expansion out west, to be honest. However, another little feature of Brigham Young is that he was a very racist man. And
during their trip out to Utah, I think he ran into some personal problems with one particular individual whose name I don't remember.
William McCurdy or something?
Yeah.
This I don't know.
Yeah. So he was a
Black
guy in the church, you know, because Joseph Smith gladly baptized
Yeah,
and
yeah.
gave the priesthood to black people. And then I don't know what Brigham just didn't like that he was like marrying white women.
Well, he also I think he was also preaching as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was preaching, and he was kind of preaching against what Brigham Young had taught, and so he was just like, no more baptizing black people.
Yeah, it was like he had problems with one black guy, and so then he's just like,
well, there was also some economic things to consider as
you have
well.
the old Georgia theory.
Because you know, he's the governor, because he's wearing two hats. He's the prophet, but he's also the governor of a state, and he wants it to thrive. And I think there was something to do with like Utah was gonna get more business if he allowed slavery to, you know, be legal in the state. And so I thought
slavery was already illegal by then.
Well, I think it was
No?
the Wild West. That's the thing, because polygamy was too. Like you had like the eastern states, which are sort of like more established, more like progressive, you could say, and then out west, it's a little more the Wild West, and slavery and polygamy were like the two big things that like Utah was still doing, and I think it was creating some business for them, and so like it attracted some business, you know, partners who were on board with the slavery thing, and so I think that was a big part of it, and I think some of it at least was like motivated out of greed. Probably some of it was racism too, but nevertheless, the decree went out from Brigham Young that black people were not allowed to have the priesthood. Were they allowed to be baptized?
Yeah.
They were allowed to be
Could be baptized, could not hold the priesthood, which is, you know...
I thought at first, maybe I'm wrong. I thought at first they weren't allowed to be baptized, but maybe I'm wrong.
I'm not sure about that.
I could be wrong.
I know for sure it's the priesthood. They could not hold the priesthood. Until, and that's around 1850, something like that. Fast forward 1978. How long ago is that now? That's what, 40 years, 40-something years. When were you born, Jeremy?
1980.
Okay, so yeah, 2 years before, so 43 years ago. 43 years ago. Black folks couldn't
after the
hold the
civil
priesthood.
rights movement.
Oh, yeah.
Well
oh, yeah.
after.
And so obviously it does beg the question of like, where was God? Why wasn't God telling these old white men to get their act together?
The other thing about that too is they say that it was an anonymous decision. They were in there for hours deciding that. Like it wasn't
like a unanimous. They say it was unanimous.
Yeah, it might have been eventually, but it was not like a quick decision. They were just like, oh, the church.
There was arguing.
There had to be. They were in there for hours, like deciding that.
Maybe another person we should mention in this too is McConkie, Bruce R. McConkie.
McConkie? Mm.
He was He was
said
like
some things.
this figure.
He was the most repentant of them.
Oh, that's true. He apologized.
But he was also, maybe he did the most to
Damage?
because he was such a great orator, such a colorful expounder, you know. He did a lot of expounding on like doctrine where like we'd have little seeds of ideas from back in the beginning of the dispensation. And then McConkie in his book, as we were kind of saying, the card ran full. So, we were talking about Bruce R. McConkie and his role as like, he's a colorful orator. He's expounding on a lot of ideas from earlier in the church and giving them more, fleshing them out a little more. One of those things was blacks in the priesthood, and he just goes crazy. He just started.
He wrote the folklore on.
He wrote all the folklore. The stuff about like black people were fence sitters in the pre-existence. How
Well, he probably didn't necessarily originate.
pull
all
that
of
mic up a little more here. We gotta.
I'm not on my
You-
key.
yeah,
I
you
gotta
gotta
slide down again.
Slide down a bit.
Well, to expand on that, yeah, he basically said that, black people were in pre-existence, they were sitting on the fence between going with Satan and going with and going
God's
with-
plan versus
Yes.
Satan's plan, and black.
Yes.
He said Bruce R. McConkie said that black people were on the fence about it, and then finally at the very end, they're like, we'll go with God, you know.
yeah.
Or they were descendants of Cain.
Also that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, both. He said both of those things. He's like, they're fence sitters and Cain, who was, of course, the first murderer, and put a.
Descendants of murderers, yeah.
And in the scriptures, it's like there was a dark mark put upon him. Well, that's another thing we should talk about is like the Book of Mormon's sort of
The Lamanites?
race
Yeah.
talk, you
They're
know.
Well,
Anyway, but to
Martley explained that away. Had nothing to do with race, you silly goose.
okay.
Everyone's like, so Nephites were just like white Europeans? It's like, no.
Well,
See, that's one person that you should have on a podcast to talk about this. He knows way more than I do, and he is way more versed in.
he doesn't live.
He
in
gave it-
Calgary.
No, he's in Ottawa now.
Shame. I guess we could pipe him in via somehow, but
Technology.
that's a lot of work.
No, thanks.
Skype them in.
He does know a lot, though. I remember we've talked about this with him a bit. So anyway, Bruce R. McConkie, he, I think did a lot of damage, was very repentant once the change was made. He reversed everything, but it's funny because it's just like it begs the question, It's like you were wrong about everything. What else were you wrong about? Like, is there anything else in that little book you got that's like crazy? In the mission story, I think it was like the fourth or the third one or whatever, there was like some jokes about like, there's some good stuff in here. It's like, okay, there's some, we'll just put, it's like, it's chock full of like, it's like he was writing D&D lore, just
Yeah.
at the top of his head. There is some good stuff. I think, when he's talking about Jesus or God, like it's fun to like, it's fun to read the lore of your own faith, but
I think part of that too is
except when it's like super racist.
yeah.
It's not good.
I think part of my faith crisis, we'll call it that, is I've heard you call it.
That's the term, yes.
Sure.
I've heard you guys call it that, so I'm going to call it that on this podcast. Is what do you separate the apostles from, like the doctrine, what the apostles are saying from the man, from what they're saying, just as a human being?
Yeah, what's from God? What's from them?
Well,
Yeah.
it's real tricky with Brigham Young because he was Governor Young and President Young, and he was also
And
president for a long time.
Yeah, and especially the early days of the church. Like they said some of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard about race or gay people or just like anything. But then they would go on these other they would say these other things that are beautiful about the church and about, well, not about the church, but about God and about Jesus Christ and gospel
and Christ.
And I'm just like, okay, how are these the same people?
I think, Wolf, my immediate thought is like, that's where you do have to become like a a buffet, you got to pick and choose, you know, leave the racist tirades, take the nice, you know, gospel bits that you like. And, you know, the songs are, I like the songs. Those are good.
But for me personally, it's just like, okay, well, I don't know if I can necessarily separate all of that. And how can I believe this church is the true church when there are things that were done in the church that I don't think are congruent with God's plan?
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. That's where I stand too. Like, for me, it was a lot of the like, it's just that there's logical. You see, it's tough because it's, and like, okay, so to sort of like set up this idea without it sounding too crazy, although it is a little crazy. Like, I remember I was watching a lot of like Scientology documentaries, kind of like leading up to me leaving. And I, you know, watching these documentaries, you see these people who are in the Scientologist church and you think to yourself, how could they be in the church? Like, don't they know they're in a cult or whatever? And I'm not calling the church, you know, the Mormon church a cult, but
every church is a cult.
Right. It made me think twice, like, oh, I had to like think, like, am I in a thing that I don't know exactly what it is? And so that which leads into this idea that like, if you believe some of the framework and some of the groundwork of the doctrine. So for instance, if you believe, let's take polygamy for an example. We could apply the same thing to blacks in the priesthood, I suppose, too, where if some of the foundational ideas are true, namely that, you know, God talked to Joseph Smith is a prophet. Let's assume that's the truth. Mm-hmm. And then let's assume that Brigham Young was God's prophet. If all of those things are true in the Book of Mormon and all of these things, then it's like, okay, then I guess God didn't want black people to have the priesthood for this long. And that's where you get a lot of people sort of like struggling with this and having to like do these these gymnastics mentally to justify like, why would God want such a thing? Same thing with polygamy. Why would God want polygamy? But for me, it goes back to like, there's things before like the Book of Mormon, like just how it was written, how it was translated, you know, Joseph Smith and Junior and Senior, their like magic practices, you know, their occult practices and just sort of like their general
tricking people out of money, I
con
guess.
Artistry,
Yeah,
you know, and like the very early, right before all this stuff, it just like, to me, it's like, and plus there's so many other things, like, I don't know, look into it, but to me, it's like, oh, this sort of invalidates everything else. You know, it's like, it's like, you don't have to jump over, you don't have to do the mental gymnastics with the race thing. Cause it's like, oh, the simple answer is that they were racist. That's the answer to the question. It's not like God wanted them to do that. It's just like, oh, they're just some racist dudes. And
that's how I used to answer the question when people
you know?
would ask me that question. Like, as I got older, people would be like, okay, so why are you in a church? Like or in high school, or when people would ask me questions about blacks in the priesthood, I would be like, well, everyone was racist back then. You know, like, yeah, our church is not, it's not in of its own in that way. But
yeah, it is true that,
yeah.
So that's the tricky part is you start treating the past with presentism.
Yeah.
Where you're judging everyone in the past based on today's values. But it is also true, because then it's a fine balance where you're like, well, yeah, everyone was racist. It's actually to be expected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it's like, but now we're much better. So you're like, but so the church, it changes. But the problem is it doesn't really change fast enough. And it kind of holds on to this traditionalism, but also it's supposed to be like revelatory.
Yeah.
And there's like two things tugging against each
Problem
other.
is, there needs to be a culture change, and the culture change is not going to happen until all the older generation
Have passed on?
no, not passed on, have accepted that the culture change needs to happen.
Well, that's the thing. Like, Caleb's right. It's when they're dead. That's like in the Bible. I think there's like some story where it's like they had to kill the whole like previous generation because I don't know. I'm sort of paraphrasing.
I'd like a reference for that.
To be
stuff.
fair,
Yeah, I don't know.
To be fair, I don't
Talking
think.
out of my ass.
I don't think I don't think any of the general authorities. Well, I mean, I haven't obviously listened to a lot of talks in the last couple of years, but as what I've seen before that, it's not like they're out of tune with what's happening in the world. No. Like that's one thing that I feel like the church is very.
It depends on who it is.
Sure, it depends on who it is, but I just did notice that even when I was actively listening to talks or actively reading my scripts or actively going to church, that I felt like maybe the local leaders might have been out of tune with what was going on, but I never really felt like the general authorities or the higher anarchy of the church, or whatever you call it, hierarchy.
Yeah.
Sure, hierarchy of the church. Was out of tune
High
with that.
command.
Sure, was out of tune with that. But
I was just gonna say too, like we talk about, the church. Everyone was racist back then.
Mm-hmm.
We take a look at like the church has always, and even let's take it up to 1978, maybe even up to today. The church has always been this distillation, a representation of conservative thinking Americans.
100%.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Like, and so, okay, we take a look at the church in 1850. What were right-leaning conservative Americans, what was their kind of thought process? Well, slavery and racism. Okay. 78.
The church was always anti-slavery.
No.
Like that's one reason they got driven out of Missouri.
I probably when Joseph was in charge, but I know that should we look up some quotes just to make sure I'm not talking out of my bum?
Like I'm pretty sure Joseph Smith was against slavery.
The point I was trying to make is that like when we say like,
but I think he's talking about Brigham Young.
How come the church took so long to get out of to give black people the priesthood? Well, I think even up the 70s was still a racially fraught time, and it's a reflection of of right-leaning conservative Americans at that time.
Yeah,
that's
I'm
what
pretty
it
sure
is.
like Hugh B. Brown almost left the church because they
and tons of people did, right? Like it sort of was a sifting of the wheat from the chaff situation.
And obviously we've come a long ways, and I wouldn't say that I experience racism every day or anything like that, especially in Canada. But there are some racist things that have happened to me. Like I have personal stories that it happens, and it's not like it's over. It's not like racism has like it's not like there's no racism in Canada or in the world anymore. Obviously this year has shown us that there's still a lot out there, but I think that it's come a long ways for sure.
I think
it's come a long ways, but there's
still work to be done,
mountains to climb to get
it's funny
over.
though, because like as a black person, especially with dealing with law enforcement, police officers.
Yeah.
They're either racist or they're overly nice to you because they don't want to be in trouble.
Reverse racism.
Yes.
Hey, I remember driving in a car with you and Ben, and there was a police officer, and we quickly turned on some Luke Bryan. We're like, we gotta let these police.
Good
officers
evening,
know
officer.
Yeah, but
gotta let them know we're cool.
The first time I got pulled over, the cop looked at me. He's just like, "I pulled you over before," and I had never been pulled over in my life. I was like maybe 18 years old, and I was like, "This is a joke." Like, and then he wanted to. And he was, I don't know, I was like scared. I was like an 18-year-old kid, and he was just like grilling me and like intensely, and just like because I was shaking and I was really scared because I was going pretty fast. He like wanted to search my car, and I was just like, and it was over the top. But I've also been pulled over, and the cop has been the nicest human being I've ever met in my life.
And that's
to you,
and it's like every
I don't know if that has to do with race, or if that is just the difference.
Just the bad apple that got caught.
But I don't know.
I don't know.
I think a lot of a-holes
become cops. Yeah, I think
fair
you're right.
too.
I think you're right.
That's fair too.
I got some something from gregcofford.com. It sort of goes through churches' sort of varying positions on slavery in 5 phases. It says phase 1, opposition to slavery in the Book of Mormon. Joseph Smith initially expressed strong opposition to slavery through the pages of the Book of Mormon, not specifically referring to black people, but Mormonism's foundational work asserted that it was against Nephite law to enslave those less favored than themselves, namely the Lamanites. And then, so phase 2, sort of detachment towards slavery in Ohio and Missouri, says Mormon attitudes towards slavery entered a second phase of deliberate detachment following the general organization of the church in 1830. Through the pages of the church's official newspaper, the Evening and Morning Star, Joseph Smith and others avoided discussion of this increasingly controversial topic. No mention was made of the Book of Mormon verses condemning slavery. A major reason for such deliberate detachment was the establishment of Mormonism's Zion in Missouri, a slave state. Okay, church officials sought to disassociate themselves from the fledgling abolitionist movement.
They were like trying not to get kicked out.
I think so.
Yeah.
Phase 3, pro-slavery sympathy in Missouri. By mid-1830s, church attitudes towards slavery shifted yet a third time. Church spokesman affirming support for slavery. In August 1835, the church issued an official declaration stating that it was not right to interfere with bond servants nor baptize them contrary to the will and wish of their masters. That's a quote. Nor cause, quote, them to be dissatisfied with their situations in this life, close quote. Ultimately, this statement was incorporated into the Doctrine and Covenants as Section 134. 8 months later, in April 1836, Joseph Smith reaffirmed Mormon pro-slavery sympathies through a lengthy discourse published in the official Latter-day Saints Messenger and Advocate. Smith raised the specter of racial this is a quote, racial miscegenation, I don't know that word, and possible race war, close quote, if abolitionism prevailed. So he's basically saying, like, there's going to be a race war if abolitionism or the abolition of slavery prevails. He further stated that the people of the North have no more right to say that the South shall not hold slaves than the South have to say the North shall. He referenced the Old Testament, specifically the decree of Jehovah that blacks were cursed with servitude. Other church spokesmen echoed Joseph Smith's sentiments, in particular Oliver Cowdery and Warren Parrish. And then phase 4, anti-slavery position in Nauvoo. This is during his run for president. In his quote, views on the powers and policy of the government of the United States, Smith advocated the abolition of slavery through gradual emancipation and colonization of the freed blacks abroad. He called for the, quote, breakdown of slavery and removal of the, quote, the shackles from the poor black man, close quote, through a program of compensated emancipation financed through the sale of public lands. Finally, in phase 5, pro-slavery position in Utah territory, Mormon attitudes and related practices relative to slavery shifted yet a fifth and final time following the death of Joseph Smith in 1844 with the emergence of Brigham Young as the leader of the church, who migrated out west. Young's evolving position represented, quote, a bundle of contradictions, close quote. Initially, he advocated a free soil stance in a June 1851 sermon, rhetorically stating, quote, shall we lay a foundation for Negro slavery? No, God forbid, close quote. 6 months later, in the wake of his appointment as Utah territorial governor, Young retreated from this position, despite his assertion that, quote, my own feelings are that no property can or should exist in slaves, close quote. Young called on the territorial legislature to adopt a form of benevolent indentured servitude to regulate Utah's small but visible black population. 2 weeks later, addressing the same body, he proclaimed himself, quote, a firm believer in slavery, close quote.
So it's wishy-washy. It's back and forth.
It's like
That's basically what we're saying here.
Governor Young loved slavery. President Young didn't love it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So,
probably a long read for our listeners, but
hopefully, sorry, at a certain point, I was just like, I'm just reading here.
You were committed.
I was committed. We're about the facts here,
but we're learned.
We're learning.
We're the facts according to
Jeremy did say
Hoffman.
we'd learn something new.
I think those are some new things I learned there.
Mind blowing new.
closing thoughts on racism, or I don't know how much anything else to say about it. Anyone?
Racism will be here forever. It's just that we have to adapt to it.
What does that mean? Can you explain?
Jeremy's like,
Elaborate.
I personally
Well, racism will be
guarantee-
around
Yeah.
for forever. It'll never go away. But we can't just we gotta stop thinking about it.
Wait, what?
Troy decode.
So I'm going to
decode.
go ahead and decode this
Decode
here.
it.
What I think you're saying is that so racism is sort of like it's in human nature
Yes.
to be like it's in our nature to just be sort of there's us and them. That's sort of our code genetically. It's wired in. Our chimp brains are very,
I don't know if I
It's us, it's
necessarily
them.
believe that. What I believe is that people will find anything to
Turn it into a
To-
race situation.
not race situation to turn against each other. Like, it doesn't have to be race. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah,
it could
yeah.
be. It could be gays. It could be.
Republicans, Democrats.
Sure,
that's
Democrats,
what I'm.
Republic-
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that like it's that race like racial divides is
Sure.
built in. I'm saying that like
division.
tribalism. I'd say tribalism
Sure.
is built within us, and we've seen that just get magnified during like 2020. It just became like with Trump and with all of that crap, and it's become like progressive versus conservative, or like Republican, and if you're on one side or the other, you think the other side is this scum, yeah, and that's tribalism, and that's a very natural inclination for humans to have. I think that's what you're saying.
Yes.
And racism is kind of a part of that.
Yes.
Right. But the second part was
We can adapt.
We gotta adapt to it.
Are you
and
saying
be
that
better.
like the more we focus on race, the more racism will sort of crop up? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And that one solution might be, I mean, Morgan Freeman has sort of openly talked about this, where like,
I got one of his quotes is like, I can't remember what one of his quotes was, but he has good quotes on. The more you focus on it, the more it's gonna be there.
yeah, and it is a bit of a, I mean, we're a bunch of white dudes, but I don't know. This is the world we live in today, where it's like, what is that called? Where you're not supposed to say something if you don't belong to the, you're not supposed
Appropriation.
to. Yeah, I don't know, but I think it's just a matter of fact where the more you talk about something, the more it's going to be on your mind. That's just true, right?
Sure.
And it's just race and. But here's the other thing too. Like, it's good to, when progress is made, sometimes people get bloodied in the process. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
Don't you think? So it's like, take for instance the, and I hate that we're talking about this. For a person such as myself who, I want to avoid all sorts of controversy, but like the Me Too movement, for instance. Some people got, Harvey Weinstein. Lots of people got outed for their shenanigans.
Not Bill Cosby.
Cosby's okay, apparently. He's out of prison now.
He's a free man.
He's a free man now. But the idea there is that, like, I think the net result is good, and that there's some accountability and that there's some honesty.
Yeah, like the French Revolution.
It's a little bloody.
Some people went to the guillotine for no reason.
Right, and that's,
But guess what? They got democracy.
now they're free, yeah. And I think
so. Let the heads roll.
let some heads roll, and I think it's like same with like the progress with racism. Now I'm a little, it's like I kind of agree with you here, Jeremy, where I think when we focus too much, because we're sort of like like this whole critical race theory where like, your racial identity is so important to who you are, it starts to like flip us back in the direction where we came from a little bit, where like,
It's like neo-racism.
yeah, where like Martin Luther King was like, listen, it shouldn't, I think what he would talk about is like, it shouldn't matter what color your skin is. Like, whatever color your skin is, you can go up to whichever, water fountain you want. You can go to whichever hotel you want. You can go and do whatever you want, no matter what the color of your skin is. That was sort of, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, but that's my understanding of what he's saying.
Like his dream was to have white and black children play together.
Yeah, like it's all...
The dream was for black people or white people to go into any establishment and it wouldn't matter.
Wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
And now it's like we're getting with... When you make race such a critical component of like your identity, I think it's like you start to head in the direction of like, oh, I guess race is important. It's sort of, but I get it's like it's important to like look at where you come from and like to take. Gosh, it's such a minefield, isn't it? I was about to say like to take pride in your race, but and then I was like,
well.
But it's good to take pride in your race, but it's also gotta learn from the other races to understand.
But for white people, that's that's a problem. That's an issue.
Because I remember there was controversy over like the Black Panther movie. Like,
oh
yeah.
I don't know. It's like Ben Shapiro was like, Wakanda's not even real, and I feel like African Americans were very happy about the movie.
Yeah.
Because it was like black representation, African culture representation.
For sure.
And what's the issue?
The issue is that some people are just like, no, it's fake.
See, that's
it's not
where,
even real.
That's where racism.
So I
think that's racism.
Yeah.
And the same with like Star Wars. What's his name? Finn's character in Star Wars. Obviously, there was a lot of like racist backlash against. They're like, we don't want a black person as a main character in Star Wars. Obviously, that's just like racist crap and like it, shouldn't factor in. Although, speaking of China, Finn was removed from the poster in China because he was presumably black, but I
didn't know that, but I believe that for sure.
He wasn't removed. He was just like minimized.
No, I think he was removed.
Okay. I thought like in the American poster, he's like, up front, taking up a big chunk.
My goal was to avoid Star Wars.
Nice try.
I have never seen Star Wars in my life, so.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I like Star Wars, but it doesn't. It's not.
You don't want to talk about it. We get it. You skip over all the Star Wars bits.
I think I told you guys that in my email.
Is Mandalorian part of Star Wars?
It is Star Wars, yes.
So I've seen.
Shut up, dude. Get out.
So I've seen Mandalorian.
Shut up, Jeremy. Mister, I haven't seen Star Wars. You love it.
So I don't know.
It's good. It's just
I don't watch fantasy movies. My life is a fantasy, so why do I need to see
Jeremy's
fantasy
just
movies?
living the dream, the fantasy life.
My life is a fantasy. I don't know. To close the loop on what we were talking about, I don't know. I forget what we were even going with it, but
I think we solved racism.
I think what you were saying is like it's hard for you as a white man to say, "Hey, I'm proud to be white," or as a black man, it's like probably not a good thing for me to say, "I'm proud to be black." But the thing is, for me personally, I think you can take pride in your ancestry, the things that happened to
your culture,
or like the things that happened in the past. Within, like, obviously I'm not going to forget about slavery.
Yeah.
I'm black. I'm just not going to forget about it. And I'm not going to not talk about it. I'm not going to like avoid the talk about racism. I think that bringing it up is important, and especially with our children, to like teach them that those things can be really harmful. Racism is extremely harmful, and it can really hurt people. Like for me growing up, it really did hurt. Like there's things that I experienced growing up. But at the same time, I think we need to be careful about making everything about race. Like it can't be like, oh, like Lyndon didn't enslave my people. Troy didn't enslave my people. Jeremy didn't enslave my people. So I can't hate white people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I can't like, I don't think that's the best approach either. I think what it is we need to be able to teach our children or teach the next generation about how racism or race doesn't matter, about like you can interact with a black person, you can interact with an Asian, and it's no different. Like because they have different cultures, they have different foods they eat or whatever, that doesn't make it so they're less lesser person.
Yeah.
Or you a better person. Like, I don't think I'm a better person because I'm black. I don't think I'm a less person because I'm black either. You know what I mean?
Do you think it comes down, and this is so corny, but like I think it's the truth, but it's like, is it just like love versus hate?
Sure.
Like, do we just need to like get away from the different forms of hate that I don't know, like, and maybe that's the thing too, is like we're sort of getting away from tolerance a little bit, you know, the intolerance that we're seeing, and like the wokeism of the left, and sort of the sort of the I don't know what the equivalent on the right would be, but I guess sort of like the racism, just straight up classic,
but
classic Coca-Cola.
Sure, and it's also like
racism,
a lot of like.
Oops,
like
hold on.
So even like I don't know all the names, and I might be, this might sound insensitive, but the LGBT community, right? That
2+.
Sure.
2S, 2S plus.
3,
Sure,
4,
community
5.
like that. Like I
You're on warning.
growing up in the church, that was a big thing too. Is I felt like I felt like they were lesser people. Like growing up, like that's what I feel like.
Who
I
was lesser
taught.
people?
The LGBT
Gay folk.
were like
Queer folk?
Yeah, like they like in the church we don't allow, like we obviously
We
what's
view
the
them
word?
differently.
You didn't
view
want to
them-
be gay. That was
You didn't want to be gay, and
yeah.
I don't feel that way anymore. I have gay friends and I have lesbian friends, and they are no less people than I am.
The progress there, I think, is great. I think it's like we've come such a long way, and coming as a straight guy, not very, if at all, involved in like the gay community. So I apologize if I feel so like I have to apologize, But yeah, I feel it seems like in our culture and in our the sort of collective culture that we've made a lot of strides forward in that.
We have for sure, but I don't know if the church is where
I don't think the church is being
Church-wise, no.
No, and I don't think the church
Maybe a
is where
little
I
bit,
want it to, where I think it should be at, personally.
And that's
Yeah.
where I'm saying that the culture change in the church needs to change from the older generation.
They're not gonna change though.
No, they will change.
No, they won't.
The
No,
older
they'll
generation.
change by dying.
No, it'll change when the middle age, younger age goes to them and say, "Hey, you got to start learning what's going to happen to you."
I
Do
think
you know how like
that's
the
been happening. They just
seniority
don't
leadership
listen.
in the church works?
Yeah, I get it.
The
I was
old
a-
people are in charge.
So we had a.
You'll get there, Jim.
Put
we
that
had
a
a
little
mid-
closer to your mouth, Jeremy.
We had a
There
mid
we go.
singles meeting in Lethbridge because they wanted a mid singles ward, and then they said one of the guy that was in charge was the stake president. He's like, I totally agree with you guys wanting one, but the culture change needs to happen with the older generation, and by you guys making a stink about it, it's gonna happen in a couple of years that people are gonna be, the older generation will be like, hey, yes, we see the change, we see that we're hurting people.
So how long do you have to make a stink before, how much pain has to happen before,
Until it happens,
Okay,
it happens to one of their families,
True.
then that's where it's gonna happen.
You see that a lot in like Jeffrey R. Holland's talks. They're often sort of, it's like something personal will happen in his family, and that's kind of becomes the topic
And
he
it'll
talks
change it,
on.
and it changes them.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I don't know. We've been wading through the heavy stuff, haven't we?
But it's the good
well, we
stuff.
got some heavy lifters.
We got some broad, strong, strapping shoulders here to carry it, and
But my back hurts sometimes. So
so Jeremy's sort of he's on the side. He's kind of telling us where to watch the stairs.
Twist.
don't walk up the stairs and break your arm.
Yeah. Okay, let's put a cap on. We solved racism. Sounds like.
Did we get any emails?
Maybe I don't know. Is there anything else we want to discuss before we get to emails? Is that that's
I
kind of
didn't email you this week because I knew it was going to be on the pod.
That makes
Check the
sense.
emails.
We got one from Alex here. He says, he wants to come on. He wants to come and talk. Did I read this already?
Is he trying to invite himself on the podcast? I have not heard this.
Okay.
You can't invite people on. You can't do yourself on the podcast.
I did, kind of.
Jeremy, you.
I feel like we
emailed
haven't
us-
really talked to Jeremy, and like, do you have anything else you want to?
No, I learned. I said we're gonna learn something today, and we're learning.
Okay.
It's not about me always.
This is from Alex Williams. He says, "Hi, local airplane denier here." Well, callback. Jace was a good guest. Interesting, great chemistry, and good insights. Definitely your funniest guest. Quick-witted. Great conversation, too. I've had a few conversations with people who struggled on their wedding night with shame and with just trying to figure out how to be intimate, let alone have sex. Can't wait for Jeremy to join you guys on the 10th.
Oh,
That's
yes.
right now.
I'm right here,
There he is.
Alex.
Regarding,
We're learning.
We're learning and loving together. Regarding Star Wars, Caleb, cover your ears here.
They're covered.
I'm loving Bad Batch. Might have to come back and talk not even about church stuff. He wants to do a pure Star Wars episode. And I would be
You
open
might
to
lose
this.
some viewers over that. Though.
Well,
Just me.
Let
I'm probably the only viewer that won't listen.
we'll put up, we'll give it the proper warning so no one has to listen that doesn't want to. He says, also, I agree with Jace. The Mandalorian is overrated, but he loves it, but it's overrated. We just get obsessed with it because 8 and 9 ruined Star Wars. Some hot takes there. Alex Williams recast as Alec McWilliams. So he's in on the jokes, and we like to see that. Then I say to him, yo, come talk about Star Wars. And then I say, there's not a lot of Star Wars things to talk about lately, though. And then he responds, there's always something Star Wars related to talk about. Plus, I've been rewatching the movies and the Clone Wars. Yeah, so he's ready to come back on.
He didn't say what date he wanted it on though.
Yeah, he's not as forward as.
Yeah,
He's not as forward,
You're not gonna
yeah.
make it on the podcast.
No,
Hey, we got
certainly
those
not.
Star Wars anime stuff coming in September, so we've got months to talk about Star Wars
some
anime.
things. We got some things.
I've seen some clips.
Who cares about this one? Oh,
We-
that's long.
We got a big one from Jace Gurr.
Oh, what a guy! Can I just say
Is he
something about my
following up
good
his
buddy
own?
Jay Skur?
Well, I talked to him and I told him, I was just like, you better email me specifically. So I wonder if he did.
Jay Skur has the biggest phone on earth, but too bigger for his hands. He needs to downsize.
Okay.
You heard it here first.
And Jace, you're a good guy, no matter what the
Another
girls say about
great
you.
take from Jeremy. Jace Gurr says, yo, peeps. Firstly, thanks for inviting me, / allowing me to invite myself onto the podcast. 'Twas a gay old time that was enjoyable. I should tie up some loose ends that I wasn't able to address, or maybe some thoughts I wasn't able to fully explain.
He said that. He's just like, I had some things I wanted to say, but Lyndon and Troy go on tangents. That's what he said to me. And I was just like, yeah, a little bit.
Hey,
but
start your own podcast
Hey,
then.
it's hard to manage us. That's fair.
I just thought it was
What
I
the
think
email's for.
we were well behaved this episode.
Yeah, when I came on, I was interrupted every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would yell over Jace on a whim.
Yeah. So he says, number one, I imagine inevitably someone will bring up the fact that the Strength of Youth pamphlet doesn't directly bring up masturbation. He brought that up, I believe.
He did.
He did.
But it does say you shouldn't do anything that arouse these thoughts or feelings in yourself or others, which could easily be included in that. Thanks for that clarification. My question then is, does the Strength of Youth pamphlet truly apply to everyone, or is it more geared towards teaching youth about self-control? There's obviously a lot of differences between before and after marriage, but I think it may be a bit different for someone who's 40 and someone who's 14.
Whoa.
Maybe I'm wrong. Just something I've thought about. What do you guys think? Is it for everyone or just
It's
teens?
for everyone because we need to use it.
Okay.
I mean, I always took the Sharpie on my mission, and I blacked out the TH, so it was for the strength of you.
You're the...
And it's so wise, and I taught him so well before he left.
Caleb, what do you
his
think?
mission. No
Teens or
no
everyone?
Answer to that, Lyndon?
Strength of Youth pamphlet?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Doesn't
I
care.
No, I don't care. I'm not. I told you I don't really. I'm not really in the church.
Doesn't give a F. Question.
For the strength of whatever.
It's got some good concepts. It should be
Strong
for everyone.
enough.
If it's right for you, it's right for you. If it's not, it's not.
It's very,
Yeah, no,
very bold.
Jace
there.
has got a point that
Do what thou wilt.
Do whatever you want.
teenagers, middle-aged people have
Alistair
completely
Crowley
different-
over here.
It can be for
Completely
babies
different
too. Who knows? Anybody.
For babies. Statement number 2. Troy, you had asked if I believe the church's stance on sexuality was loosening up a little bit or if it could change. You mentioned this when I brought up the removal of masturbation from a lot of literature and stuff. It has changed to an extent. For instance, I don't have an actual copy of the document, so here's the Reddit link. He gives us a little link. The reference actually banned oral sex in the 80s.
Oh, yeah. He wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, he did.
He didn't get around to it.
Blacks got the priesthood, and then we took oral sex out.
When one door opens,
Another closes. I feel sorry
This
for
is not
all.
related.
What does Jace do for a living again?
We don't know.
Is he a sexology guy?
No.
he's like he straps
He
into a harness.
stress tests structures.
Yeah,
Non-destructive testing.
That's right.
that's what it's called.
An engineer?
Yes.
The church actually banned oral sex in the 80s. He says, I feel sorry for all the wives back then. It actually has never been rescinded or revoked or anything. It just wasn't really enforced for very long. So, kind of seems like it has changed, quote unquote, since they adopted more of a don't ask, don't tell policy. I think that's where they're heading in the future. Seems like that's what it is. And that's what it always ought to have been. Statement. Any thoughts about that, fellows? No blowjobs in the 80s.
It was like specifically. Yeah, I guess there was some document.
It's wrong
Yeah.
in the eyes of God. Okay, but not anymore.
Yeah, I do. I have a mission story. There was a stake president in Arizona that was like, give me the details on what you do in the bedroom. And he'd be like, okay, no. And then, then they had to bring in Neil A. Maxwell.
General authority.
Yeah, they had to bring in an apostle to be like, dear stake president.
Stop.
Because he's just like, it looks like I'm taking your temple recommend away. And so, yeah, the apostle had to be like, you're not allowed to ask married people what they
do in the bedroom.
For doing a Philadelphia steamroller. That's not right.
He's got a big old list. He's just like, have you ever performed this?
No Mississippi hatchbacks.
He doesn't even know what half of these
No
things are.
Cleveland hello goodbyes. No up and overs.
An Arkansas Razorback? I think not.
Completely forbidden. Arkansas Razor.
A Louisiana haystack?
A hot sauce kablooey? Nope.
I feel bad. I have people coming to my house that I need to leave very soon.
Oh, okay. Well,
You guys can finish, but you can.
Do you
even
have to
cut
go?
this out. I kind of gotta go.
Well, we're only here for you, Caleb, so.
well, we can just.
We've been yelling.
This is
about-
too long of an email anyway. We can just end it here.
I'm sorry. No, you guys can
Wait,
continue.
what is that literally not the end of?
No, there's so much more, dude. Like, he just needs to come back on, I guess. The rest of this, he says, don't. Oh, okay. It says, don't read this on the podcast. So I guess we're done. Don't read this on the podcast. Why would you? You know we read everything that's sent in an email.
That's not true. We have censored some things before.
True enough. Well, guys, I guess that's it. Caleb's got to go. He's got places to be. Things
He's got
to
a party,
do,
big fight,
parties to do.
lake party.
big
Who's coming?
McGregor-
You coming?
McGregor.
You coming?
I'm heading up.
McGregor
I'm heading
is
up to the
gonna
big
lose
lake.
tonight.
Okay. Well, I'll be
Heard it
there.
here first.
I want to watch that fight. Well, guys, I guess, Lyndon, what do you think? Closing remarks.
I think Jeremy put it best when he said, we're going to learn something today. And I think we did learn something.
Yeah.
And you got to keep learning because life's a mission.
Bye.